another edition of the Lost Art of WrestleBox, the collaborative wrestling podcast where we are looking at some free-to-view wrestling content that's been getting us through the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, it's not technically true for this edition because we are working our way back into the world of the National Wrestling Alliance, and we are looking at the very first pay-per-view to take place since the inception of their YouTube show NWA Power. It's Into the Fire! Into the fire! I am your host, the man who has stowed away more times than an illegal immigrant trying to get from Calais to Dover. I am the stowaway from the RAD podcast. I just saw Coxie.
Let's cut these fingers!
I am the stowaway from the RAD Live podcast and your host, Lewis Ogden. Joining me, as ever, is the man who is a gimmick that would pretty much fit into the new generation era. It's the delivery man, James Bunkle.
How we doing?
How we doing? You all right?
Yes, delivering audio gold as usual.
Fantastic. Joining me as well is the reigning champion of the Lost Art of Wrestling WrestleMania Predictions League and the Master of Boys is Mr. Anthony Dark.
Yes, hello. It's the real Not Daz. The real Not Daz compared to those other fake Not Dazes.
Yeah, there are a couple of swindlers out and about in the world. How are we? You good?
Oh, all grand, yes, all grand, aye.
Fantastic. And last but certainly not least, it is the master of the Love Handle Slam. Some people know him as AXE, but we know him simply as Mr. Adam Cox.
Hello.
How's Al doing?
We's doing fine.
Fantastic. So, we all looking forward to getting back into some NWA today?
Absolutely. Let's get right up in it.
I think it can be summed up with one term, which is I'm falling into the fire.
Fantastic song. Well, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the show, I just wanted to make a quick little thing about the speaking out movement that has been going on over the past couple of weeks. It's a movement that has rocked the professional wrestling world. Some might say sort of like it's been a big detriment to the industry as a whole, but in many, many, many people's eyes, it is something that it's a long time coming, really. All I can say is that if you have had, well, if you're looking to not get involved with the whole thing, but if you're something that you need to speak out, get off your chest, there are avenues you can go through. I know that Leanne Marie, who is part of the Brit wrestling scene, she does sort of like loads of backstage stuff for TNT Wrestling in Liverpool. You can find her details sort of like on Twitter. She, along with a number of like particularly people in the British wrestling scene, as well as many other people in the wrestling scene. If you have anything, I don't want to say noteworthy. Noteworthy is not good, but if you feel that you have something that you need to contribute, then those are the people that you need to get in touch with. And really, sort of thinking about this whole speaking out movement, no one I feel summed this up better than Anthony Missionary Thomas, who was part of the Wrestling Soup podcast. And if you're obviously on sort of like one thing I can definitely recommend is the Speaking Out podcast that they did. It was either last week or the week before, but it's available on the Wrestling Soup Patreon page. It's about a 2.5 hour discussion of just sort of like all the stuff a majority of the stuff that has come out of this movement. It is quite a tough listen, but it is a very interesting and noteworthy listen. And it's, as I say, Missionary Thomas like summed this whole situation up perfectly. And I'm quoting here. He said, "I don't think this movement will be the death of wrestling, but if nothing changes, it should." And I think that just sums that sums up this whole thing quite nice. Well, I say quite nicely. I have to pick and choose my words. Really, it's quite a bit of a minefield. But yeah, that's sums up the whole thing, at least from my perspective, and I'm pretty sure the guys in here would agree as well.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, amen. Anyway, should we get on to some actual positive stuff in the world of wrestling? I think we should.
Yeah.
So yeah. So yes, we are looking at NWA Into the Fire today, which was the first NWA pay-per-view to take place after the inception of their YouTube show, NWA Power. Now, I made the daring attempt at watching all 9 episodes that pretty much built up to this pay-per-view, and the pay-per-view itself in the space of 3 days. So I'd like to think I'm going to be quite knowledgeable, but if I miss stuff out here or there, I do apologise, but I've just been quite wrestling heavy for the past few days or so. So, Into the Fire took place on December 14th, 2019 from the GPB studios in Atlanta, Georgia, and a sold-out capacity crowd of 255. Just the very first thing that I want to ask you guys, what do you think of GPB Studios as a venue?
I've got to say, I really enjoy it. I think it kind of takes me back to, it takes me, I don't want to say back to the old days, because the old days for me are technically the Attitude Era.
Well, you're like 10 years old, for God's sake, as well. The old days.
The old days. I'm in my 30s. I consider myself to be old, because I feel it.
When you say the old days, you make it sound like you were watching NWA in the 60s.
Yeah, I know, and that's what I was just about to explain. That's what I'm not saying. What I'm saying is, it gives, like, I don't know if anybody else did it, but even though, like, while I was sat watching, the Attitude Era and stuff like that, you would see clips going back to, back to stuff in the 80s, like Roddy Piper and Piper's Pit, and with, all of the, the elements like that, from back in that time, and it kind of it feels to me like it's like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a nostalgic feel being sort of like in the same studios that gave you championship wrestling sort of like every Saturday when you were back in sort of like mid to late 80s.
Yeah, and and like, as you get into liking wrestling and stuff like that, inevitably you end up looking back at the past and what happened in the past and watching bits and pieces from that. And that's kind of what I got the feeling I got was, wow, it's something completely different, but it kind of made me feel like nostalgic for something that I didn't even see at the time, but I've learned to watch, so to speak.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anything to contribute, or is it just Bunkle?
I was waiting for Not Dad to chime in with something, but go on.
Sorry, I don't like interrupting. Fuck it, I'll go. No, honestly, I do like it. It's quite. I was going to use the word quaint, but going back on Bunkle's old thing, but I won't use the word quaint, as I'm not from fucking Downton Abbey. I shall use the word intimate. Being the master of boys. Oh God, no. Nope. Right. It is. I feel closer to the action, so to speak. Again, fuck me with these fucking double entendres.
We know what you mean.
I feel close to the action watching it, and it feels a bit more. I don't know. When you're watching WWE and AEW, and you're like that hard cam, which is fucking million miles away from the ring, you feel like you're too far away from it, and it doesn't feel right. I like it. It's nice.
Yeah.
Mm. It reminds me a bit of going back to when Saturday Night was on was it Channel 5? No, Worldwide.
God, I can't remember. It was way before my time.
Used to have WCW Worldwide back on Channel 4 or Channel 5 in the
Channel 5. It was Channel 5, I think.
There we go. Channel 5, like late 90s. I think I'm sure Bunker caught a couple of episodes of it at points, but he's nodding his head even though he's on mute. But it reminds me of that. But there's a couple of like it is. I do like the venue, but there's a couple of instances where it is sort of limiting. I find in a way, but I'll cover that when we get to it.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I'm sort of like Daz. I quite like there's a nostalgic, intimate feeling that you get from being in these studios. Like, obviously, you get the nostalgic feel of, Jim Crockett Promotions wrestling in the mid to late 80s. And I quite like sort of like the fixed, like steady cameras that you would normally sort of, get in old mock television shows and sort of like, even dating back to like the 1960s or whatever. And as much as I quite like these like steady cams, the look and the nostalgic feel that they give, they do, as Coxie says, they do have the limitations, which does pop up a couple of times during the pay-per-view. And I sort of remember watching it when I was watching this pay-per-view, and I kept thinking, well, it's the NWA. Why haven't they tried to sort of like, have this pay-per-view in a bigger building? And you sort of have to realise that NWA Power was still in its infancy. They didn't know if they had like a viable audience. I mean, obviously, looking further ahead, they did get this bigger audience, and I can understand why they did it in sort of like the studios, because, as I say, and Power hadn't like truly kicked off. I'm sorry, I was put off because we've all four of us got the weapons on, and Anthony's got like a trilby hat that, but he couldn't get it. Of course, he couldn't get it working before we started recording. Now we are recording.
Hey! Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute. Oh, sorry.
We're alive, pal. So anyway, commentary team tonight is Joe Galley on play-by-play, and on colour is the newest addition to the National Wrestling Alliance, Stu Bennett. Now, people are wondering, hang on a minute, where's Jim Cornette? Well, let me get my laptop out, people, because on episode number 7 of NWA Power, during a match between the National Treasure Nick Aldis and Trevor Murdoch, Jim Cornette made a certain comment on Mr. Trevor Murdoch, and I am quoting here: "Trevor Murdoch is the only man I've ever known that can strap a bucket of fried chicken on his back and ride a motor scooter across Ethiopia." Now, I'm pretty sure, sort of like when this whole thing came out, somebody was able to clip an episode of Monday Night Raw in like the mid 90s where Cornette made exactly the same comment. And yeah, I mean,
the issue isn't him reusing material here. It's what he's saying.
No, it's pretty much like basically what he said. And the truth of the matter is, you can't be making those sorts of comments no matter what you intend in this day and age, because we live in a day and age where the episode of Fawlty Towers, where the basic premise of don't mention the war is not allowed to be viewed.
Oh. Well, I'll just point out that I just wanted to say, because I actually listened to the Jim Cornette podcast, unlike everyone else. He did come out and he did say that it's not actually that time where he used it on Raw. That's actually the second time of him using it. He used it even earlier than that. So it's not like it's brand new new material. I'll use air quotes here. But as you pointed out, they had 6 weeks to edit this episode and could have taken it out if they'd really wanted to. So it's not, you can't, though he should never have said it, and I agree, he's just saying something that, as a Southern American guy, that, you know, he's literally repeated a line that he's used multiple times before, and they should have cut it. And he even said that if they were unhappy with it, which they clearly were, they should have cut it. They had ample opportunity to get rid of it, and they didn't even fire him. He basically told them, "Oh, well, fuck off, I'm done."
Yeah. So I should probably say that Jim Cornette actually resigned from his position as NWA's color commentator, and the NWA released the following statement. Effective immediately, Jim Cornette has resigned from the National Wrestling Alliance as an announcer on the November 19th edition of NWA Power. Jim made remarks during a singles match between Nick Aldis and Trevor Murdoch that was both offensive and did not meet the high standards of decency and good faith of the National Wrestling Alliance. To ensure that such an error can never happen again, we've established new procedures of review for all NWA programming going forward. We sincerely regret our failure in this regard. So that's basically the whole thing with Jim Cornette in this whole NWA bubble. And its replacement, Stu Bennett, was announced very last thing of the Go Home episode of NWA Power by NWA World Champion Nick Aldis. Just wondering, guys, what do you think of the appointment?
He's the most boring man alive.
Fair enough, right, Nick?
But I will say that I think he's getting better, but to hire him based on his performance on World of Sport, I think was an error.
Well, the thing is, sort of like, I think there were more glaring errors with World of Sport. Like, for instance, if you hired the editing team or camera production team from World of Sport, then
of course
that would be. I feel that would be sort of like a big, grave injustice. That, give the people that produced that piece of shit work.
The thing is, it was like fucking Total Wipeout the way they fucking presented it on ITV, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was a fucking episode of Total Wipeout. But yeah, I will say about Stu Bennett though, he comes from why they employed him was, he comes from like that wrestling background, and because he can't act, he has to be a commentator. Oh, come at me, Stu Bennett, I don't care.
No,
I like him. I like him in that position. Not because he was born around the corner from me, but on a serious note, he was genuinely born around the corner from me. He's from there, Preston, repping it.
I'm going to have to say, I'm afraid I've got some bad news.
Can't say that anymore.
Yeah.
I can say what the fuck I want.
Fuck you then.
Anthony, be careful. You don't want the love handle slam. Trust me.
As a matter of boys, maybe I do.
Just bring up another boy and shut the fuck up.
Careful now. Get with that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest. Like, based on his performance tonight, I wasn't like inspired, particularly when sort of like there was a couple of comments like in the middle of the show that were just sort of like, Christ Almighty. But we will get to them. We will get to it. Our opening contest of the night is Eli-Drake versus Ken Anderson. Now, we made mention towards the end of our Crockett Cup episode. If you've not listened, go back and listen to it now. About potential candidates to challenge Nick Aldis for the NWA World Heavyweight title, and we couldn't really think of anybody sort of like off the bat who would be sort of like in the NWA at the moment that you could potentially build and then have them go on to challenge and potentially dethrone Nick Aldis as the NWA Heavyweight Champion. I just want to throw my hat in the ring and say that I think Eli-Drake would be a be a very suitable candidate because, as I say, I've watched all 9 episodes of NWA Power that lead up to this pay-per-view, and I think the one shining constant, this guy that I've probably been sort of like, yeah, I could see him going to challenge for the world title, would be Eli-Drake, because I think he's incredibly charismatic. He's very good on the microphone. I've only ever seen him in the one match, and that was against, I think it was Caleb Connolly, who is very good enhancement talent. But it was very good match. He was a very decent worker. And I mean, particularly sort of like in the early episodes of Power, they have sown the seeds of, you know, a potential slow build towards the title match with Aldous. But yeah, I think he's, out of all the current roster members at the moment, I think he would be my candidate.
Yeah, I mean, you know, having also seen all of Power and, you know, the pay-per-views and whatnot, Eli-Drake is a standout performer. But anyway, back to the point I was making. Children.
This is the problem with having webcams, children. Like, struggles to act our age.
I was looking down. I have no idea what you're talking about.
But yeah, Eli-Drake he's got everything you could ask for. He's got size. He's great on the mic. What? Sorry, I don't do midgets like crap like bloody flip-de-doo guys and whatever. I don't bother.
He's got size.
What? It's a.
You could just say he's built. He's got size.
He's got the size. What's wrong with that?
No, he has got.
That's Johnny. You've got size, pal. You got size.
I have. I'm not. Hey, tell you what, I'm not far from 19 stone this size.
He's got size. That's always just like, he's a man. He's got size. He's got big size. He's got size. Oh, fucking hell, he's got size.
No, but I understand what you're saying. Muggle. He has got a good physique.
Yeah, he doesn't look like a man-child, is basically what I'm trying to say. And, you know, he's got everything you could ask for in a champion. Do I think he's on the same level as Nick Aldis? No. But could you build him up to be? Yeah, of course you could. And I thought, like you say, after the first season, so to speak, of Power, that was something that it looked like they were going to start teasing us, but especially right at the beginning, you know, he was the one who was cutting promos, like, you know, after Aldis. He was the one who, you know, was given a lot of mic time and stuff like that. So, you know, I think it's something that they could definitely look to do in the future. Though, to me, maybe you have him lose the first time and then come back on a second build. You know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't do that. I mean, like, I realise we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but you know, there does seem to be like a progression that Drake is taking on a possible path to the title. But like, I can't remember whether it was episode 2 or episode 3, but there's a time where sort of like James Storm comes out for a promo and he's just like a case of, you know, he's got the national title and he's like, but you know, it's all good having the national title, but it's not what I want. I want the £10 gold. I want Sweet Charlotte and stuff like that. And Eli-Drake comes out and he's just basically going, hey, don't dumb down the fact that you're the national champion. Anybody would give their arm and leg to hold that title. That title is prestige. That title is sort of like, you know, an important moniker in terms of the NWA. And, you know, I'm not saying he's on the level of Nick Aldis when it comes to cutting promos, but, you know, he is very serviceable, particularly when you're looking at sort of like someone who will put the NWA over as being this, this important, prestigious company to be a part of.
I will say this though, especially in this event, they really need to stop comparing him to Ken Anderson. Because I feel every time they mention he's a great talker, he's a great wrestler, and then so's Ken Anderson. He's just like Ken Anderson. That lowers Eli Drake's own level as to what he can get at.
Yes.
And that's not a sledge on Ken Anderson at all.
Oh, don't worry, I can sledge on Ken Anderson. That's not a problem.
But I feel every time he steps into a ring near at an event where Ken Anderson is there, or for instance, when he's in a match with Ken Anderson, stop comparing the two.
Yes.
Ken Anderson had his moment. He dropped Randy Orton on his head and fucking lost it. Amongst other things, allegedly. Eli Drake is an up-and-comer. I think he's still got to reach the top level. I don't think he's at where he could be yet.
No. Yeah. Well, that's why I say he's sort of like he's the one guy in the NWA that if you were looking at doing sort of like a year, 18-month, even in like a 2-year build to him potentially, and you book him correctly, then I feel he's the one that could probably do the most with it, from what I could see. We should probably talk a little bit about his opponent, Ken Anderson. I fucking hate Ken Anderson. I think he's he calls himself the asshole, and I don't think a gimmick is like quite encapsulates the man more. I think he's a fucking waste of fucking space on the professional wrestling scene, to be honest with you.
To be fair,
I really don't like him. I remember watching NWA Power for the first time, and him coming out. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, why him?
You see, I don't particularly like Ken Anderson, but I understand why he's there. And if you're going to use him as what I think you've got to use him as, which is a name, a heel that puts the guy over, he is a stepping stone to see if it's like when we get on to talking about this match, I enjoyed the match, but I think one of the things that it felt to me like they were trying to do was figure out who the crowd likes and who they don't. It felt very much to me like they both used heelish tactics at a time. They both tried to play up to the crowd at a time. They were trying to see which one of these guys are we going to keep as a babyface and which one are we going to make a heel?
Which is quite a dangerous move for a company. I think it's a very dangerous, because the crowd could react on nostalgia.
Yeah.
Which really could last a couple of months. And you could bury this. You could end up burying Eli Drake there and then.
Yeah. You could have done. It was a risky move, but I like the fact that they did that, because it established that Ken Anderson is what he is. He is a low card heel that you use to build up a guy, and that's the role that he ended up taking during this pay-per-view. Is he's there to play the shit heel and have Eli Drake just win and move on from him. You know what I mean? It was a stepping stone. It was a jumping off point for a better talent.
Yeah, I can understand what they were trying to do, but in a way, sort of like the build to this match has been sort of like a little bit confusing, because you've had Eli Drake being given sort of like this mic time, just basically being one of the big talkers in NWA Power. Ken Anderson has sort of like taken exception to it, sort of pugged him out a couple of times, and then just sort of like, I think it was episode 7. Where Eli Drake was just sort of cutting a promo. Ken Anderson came out, took exception to it, just basically said, let's just go in the ring and do our thing. And, Anderson's going to the ring. Eli Drake blindsides him, takes the turnbuckle bar that you'd connect to sort of like the ring post to, and just laid out at Anderson. So coming in, it looked as if that Drake was the default heel, but then sort of like as you get into sort of like the inner workings of the match, it's quite a back and forth match. When they get in the ring and they're about to lock up, like Anderson does the thing of sort of like, taking his shirt off. Oh, I'm going to chuck it to the crowd, but then he just plonks it down on the floor, and it's like, aren't you supposed to be the babyface in the match? Well,
yeah,
it's not the first time that this happens tonight. I mean, we'll get onto it a little bit later on with the women, but they do this a couple of times, and I feel that it needs to be set straight from beginning to end, really. Because I felt it was a little bit too jarring, the fact that you had what we thought was the established heel and the established babyface, but then they just seemed to switch it.
Yeah, like I say, that's why it's almost to the point where I felt like it was a bit of a feeling out. They were trying to, like, how can I put it? Eli Drake was coming across as a babyface pretty much until he attacked Ken Anderson from behind. Well, you say in episode 7, whichever it might have been, or was it later on? But I don't feel like they thought Ken Anderson was. I mean, to me, he doesn't seem to get much of a reaction no matter what he did, really, during the episodes of Power. No. There's nothing that stands out in my head. And then, when it came to this, I felt that's why I kind of felt like what they were trying to do was, right, well, who do you like? Because we're giving you a bit of both. You tell us. And it's a smart strategy, but as Ant said, it's a very risky one.
Yeah. And the crowd do make sort of like it known who they want as the defunct babyface. Yeah. So as the match gets going, there's evidence of certain promotion in the northwest of England in terms of crowd interaction. You hear a fan go on, Anderson, read him his rights. And Eli Drake just goes, the hell does that mean? And it's like, because I'm pretty sure read him his rights, that would be sort of like a big boss man thing.
Yeah.
So, saying it to Anderson doesn't really make any sense. So it's quite a technical start to the match. Both men are quite competent in ring. Despite his heelish actions, Eli Drake takes a lot of the heat early on. There's a nice diving shoulder block from the inside back in from Eli Drake, and then a lovely swinging neck breaker off of a roll-up attempt. There's a Green Bay plunge from Anderson for a close 2 count, and then he reverses a gravy train, which is Eli Drake's version of the Celtic Cross, and into a crucifix pin for another 2. Impressive athleticism from Eli Drake as he does a Shelton Benjamin impression and just leaps to the top rope to meet Anderson.
No stopping him. No!
There pretty much wasn't. It was very, very impressive, I must say. Anderson attempts a sunset flip powerbomb, but Eli Drake sits down into a pinning attempt and gets the win in 9 minutes 15. As Bunker was saying, despite the fact that I loathe Ken Anderson, I thought this was quite a decent opener.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as an opening contest. They didn't have to do a right lot, and there was athleticism on show, and I like the result. I'm not going to argue with it. The finish. I mean, the actual pin, the actual move that ended up in the finish, it kind of looked like it fucked it up a little bit.
It was quite a fucking finish.
He just sat on him.
Yeah, but I understand what they were trying to do with that. They're trying to say, well, look, Ken Anderson's made a mistake and it's cost him, because that seems to be quite a big thing in the NWA. It's never so much of, this, we've all everybody's done a finisher a million times and then finally somebody gets a pinfall. It's, this guy's made an error, the other guy's taken advantage of it, he's the better man on this day.
Yeah,
and that seems to be what they do. They seem to do that quite a lot. We've seen it, at the last pay-per-view that we did with Aldis and Cody Rhodes at the end. It's a mistake that costs you a pinfall, and it can cost you everything. I mean, even back to when, you look back at even when Aldis lost the title to Cody Rhodes, it was the same kind of thing. A pinfall got reversed. You know what I mean? So
that's all it takes between winning and losing, which is quite a nice touch. Anthony, thoughts?
I like the match. I like it, but the finish, bloody hell, he just sat on the bloke. He's not Yokozuna, mate. He can kick out of that. Oh, come on. But yeah, I love Eli Drake. I think he can be a contender. I'm going to say when or if Nick Aldis decides, or NWA decides they don't want Nick Aldis to hold the title. I mean, come on, that's not going to happen anytime soon. Yeah, I just think this match was nice. It was good. I did make a note saying Eli Drake's looks like when you play NWA 2K or any wrestling thing, you make all the effort to make your superstar look how you look. You alter with the sliders, you get your nose right, your hair right, your eyes right, and then you just push the fucking random button on your gear and then just go randomize. That's what he looks like, and I think that's not a bad thing. I just think that's literally what I've just written down. I said he's wrestling. It looks like he pressed a random button on Create a Wrestler. But yeah, the finish was just. I'm sorry, it took a bit away from me. This. Right person won in the end, thank God, because I could have seen it going the other way with Ken Hansen winning with a shitty roll up, but thank God it was Eli Drake. Yeah.
Coxey, thoughts?
Not the best opener, but then I'm not a fan of Anderson. I think he's a lot of stuff he does sort of phone in. I think sometimes, I think I saw him in PCW.
We've seen him. I've seen him a couple of times in PCW, and
we've seen him.
Yeah, we've been there.
He was phoning in it so much he might as well have been employed by a call centre.
Pretty much, yeah. It was a case of like other imports that come over, where it's a case of they're doing like 3 or 4 dates in a row. They don't want to get too banged up, so it's like, right, we'll do this match, we'll go through the motions, and we'll do this, and this, and we'll start at A, we'll get to B, and then we'll do C, which will be the finish sort of thing. But yeah, I like Eli Drake. There's one episode of Power, I think it's in season 1, where he pretty much just cuts like a 5-minute promo of just, let me talk to you. And all the fans are just like, yeah,
dummy, yeah.
Which, to be honest with you, he develops into a catchphrase. I mean, he does say it like a couple of, I think it's only sort of like 2 or 3 times very early on, but then that develops into like his catchphrase in later episodes.
Oh, me and Bunker had full discussions of like how he just got a word over. Of like, but it's pretty much akin to like Austin getting what over, then regretting it.
Daniel Bryan with the yes and the no thing. I mean, it's yes and no. How are you doing that?
I'm waiting for the day Eli Drake's in an airport somewhere. Someone just walks up and just like shouts "yeah" in his face, and he's like, "Please don't do that."
Please stop.
Damn it, yeah.
Yes. So the first of a few interviews at the interview podium with Dave Marquez has an interview with Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis does what Nick Aldis does best. Of course, very pro NWA pay-per-view, NWA promo, just basically putting over the company, the fans, the title, basically everything that you want from your world champion. And then James Storm comes out. Let's say there's talks of a conspiracy, that's dotted throughout this pay-per-view, and just basically says he'll be world champion by the end of the night.
Short and sweet. James Storm gets completely outclassed, but I don't think there's anybody in the world who wouldn't be, if I'm brutally honest. At least in today's day and age. And you know, I liked it because it was just showing like a couple of seeds of doubt for later on. You know what I mean? And like, it was just, like you say, Aldis is just so good.
He's an impeccable promo. In 21 and 1.
I do. Nick Aldis speaks so well. He's that face of the NWA at the minute. Let's be honest. He is that poster boy for the end. And what a man to pick. He speaks well. He wrestles well. He does all the above at a very high level. I like James Storm. He's not on the. With all due respect, he is not on the level of Nick Aldis. Absolutely not.
He's from what I can sort of like ascertain from, as I say, the early episodes of NWA Power, he's just basically been doing his best 1997 Bret Hart impression of just having a moan, and talking conspiracy theories. And I mean, it shows later on in the main event that the crowd are more behind Aldis than they are Storm, because, you know, it's much like Bret Hart. You know, you may have points to, you know, sort of like your ramblings, but Christ almighty, stop bitching and moaning, just get it done in the ring. So yeah, we then have a clip from episode 6 of Power with the debut of Melina, and Joe Galli doing her best impression, of Ian Riccaboni to try and discredit himself as a broadcaster by calling Melina a walking legend. A walking like I can like there's two things that come to mind. Well, actually, three things that come to mind when I think about Melina. One, her doing the splits for her entrance, which, you know, anybody could probably do. Two, her allegedly having
all four of us could definitely do that.
Well, I don't know, with the right training. With the right training, I will.
And 48 hours in A&E after.
Just be like, could be like Rob Van Dam with sort of like, you know, Joey Styles overhead just going, his groin.
Surely you need what's the name off TNA saying my Raj.
Shelly Martinez.
Oh yeah, we talked about that. God bless her.
So, yeah, that's number one. Number two is her allegedly having an affair with Batista when she was still with John Morrison, or Johnny Nitro at the time. And three, when Cameron from the Funkadactyls fame, along with Naomi, when she was on an episode of Tough Enough, Steve Austin asked her what her favourite wrestling match was, and she replied with Melina versus Alicia Fox on a random episode of Raw. And Steve Austin's reaction was great, because he was just sort of like, who? So that's, whenever Melina comes up in conversation, I just think of Austin just going, there are no other great matches you can think of. And she's just like, sorry, I can't think of anything.
There are people in this world who don't deserve the blessing of a brain.
To be fair, if like he's referring to Melina as a walking legend, looking at some Doc and album names, there's so many he could have picked from. So he could have referred to her as Back for the Attack, Breaking the Chains, Dysfunctional,
that's an idea.
Lightning Strikes Again. Just to throw it out there, because I like throwing random album names in. But...
Was that what Joe Galli was doing? Was he making a reference to Dokken, a Dokken album?
No, what's his name? Bloody does it? Corey Graves. On like, I think it was like very old NXT. He used to like try and use like different metal albums and stuff like he knew the names of and try and slide them into commentary. Like there's one point where he's like, "Oh, Aleister Black showing a vulgar display of power there." like,
Get it?
Sarah, and then he'd be like, "Oh, he looks like a cowboy from hell, and now he's far beyond driven." And it's like, I'll give it a rest, mate.
I'm just waiting for a commentator just like pause and then like a massive spot and go, "Whoa, they're going to Ibiza," like that, and just completely ruin the metal bit and just go with Venga. Fuck it and go with Venga Boys. Boom, 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 boom. Nicole is in my room.
To be fair, their MOB. There was I remember once I was watching UKW when they had their show on my channel. There was the two commentators like full on Yorkshire accents trying to basically be JR and Jerry the King, and one of them said something and the other one says, "Oh, if you best watch what you say because I will walk over there and slap the taste right out your mouth." He sat right next to him. Like, I'll walk right over there. I don't even need to walk, mate. I'll just slap you from here. Like,
in other words, Melina, fuck off.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it's better than doing sort of like a hardcore Holly impression where you're just sort of like going, "I will break your ass in half, you little shithead." Anyway, match number 2, it's Tasha Steelz versus Thunder Rosa. Thunder Rosa is the shining diamond in the NWA women's division for me. I think she's great. She's a really good worker. She's got a unique look, and yeah, she's incredibly good looking as well.
Yeah.
Thumbs are up perfectly. Fantastic.
As married men, we must nod and not leave any evidence behind.
Oh, it was never a moment when she came out, to be fair, because they got entrances.
Yes, yeah, we did forget to mention they have entrances on this pay-per-view,
and they're incredible. No, they're not. They come out, they stroke the picture on the side for a bit, and then they fucking walk down past bloody God knows who else, fucking Yankee Yankee Doodle in his bloody USA suit, and then off we bloody go.
There's also a New Japan US title in the crowd I spotted at one point.
Oh, I spotted that as well, yeah.
Next to Yankee Yankee Doodle.
He looks so out of fucking place. I'm in the Margarina.
There's a guy who's wearing a Thunder Rosa t-shirt. When she's going past, he literally just sort of like it's basically like a picture with her on the front, and he's just sort of like,
"Look at my chest, woman."
basically.
That was
not very familiar with Tasha Steelz. Yeah, I'm not particularly aware of that. I do know in current nowadays, sort of like in the beginning of July 2020, she's employed by Impact Wrestling. So,
Oh.
It doesn't work out for everybody.
Yeah, well, I think she only made like 3 appearances or something for NWA, and then I think from like January, sort of late January onwards, she's popped up in a couple of indie companies, and then she's like been in TNA for the past like 2 months or something. So, well, Impact.
With regards to the match, I thought it was quite a nice heel touch when Steelz is tied up with the Tree of Woe, and sort of Thunder Rosa is sort of like kicking her heels back in Steelz' face whilst sort of like jaw-jacking with the referee. And then she hits a lovely basement drop kick to the stomach. Also, there's a nice walk around surfboard stretch, which was really good. Quite an awkward running cutter from Tasha Steelz, which was the only sort of like note I had of offense for her in the match. Then there's a pair of running kicks from Rosa, and then she finishes Steelz off with a top rope foot stomp to the back, and she gets the victory in 4 minutes 15. And then Thunder Rosa continues to beat on Tasha after the bell. Ashley Vox comes in to try and make the save, and Rosa beats her down as well and just like injures the elbow of Ashley Vox, who is meant to be competing in a tag match later on in the show. I thought the match was fine. Tasha Steelz was okay. But I mean, sort of like it was a showcase for Thunder Rosa, and she was and still is very over with the NWA crowd. So good showcase for her.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. This match was what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a showcase for Thunder Rosa and supposed to make her look like $1 million, which it did. Tasha Steelz, I thought her promo was a bit shit. That she did before the match. I didn't get it. I didn't understand what she said at the end either, to be honest. It kind of sounded like she was a bit nervous and mumbling.
I think she was trying to do the best like Conan impression. Because, they sort of put over the fact that she's of Puerto Rican descent.
And she kept doing, and she kept like anytime she got any kind of offense, she kept trying to do like the gun to the head pose, and I just thought, you look a cunt. I was just like, what are you doing? I'm sorry, but you're being absolutely mullered here, love. Yeah, get on with it. Get pinned so we can carry on. You know, and yeah.
Bunkle's full of like, she's been mullered cornered. What a cunt.
Been mullered cornered everywhere.
But yeah. The match did what it was supposed to do. Thunder Rosa is possibly the best talent they have behind Aldis at the minute. She's most over in terms of a babyface, even though she really shouldn't be a babyface. And
I'll talk about it when we get on to the women's tag match later on. About who's supposed to be Vel, who's supposed to be face, who's supposed to be heel again.
Yeah, and then you know, that submission she put on Ashley Vox at the end, that looked sick. I mean, I don't know if that girl's elbows can bend, backwards or whatever, but it looked like it was going to break. It did look really realistic, and it looked really good. So, very impressed. Tasha Steelz, I don't care, you're an Impact. See you later, love.
See you later, love. Can I just say, I remember watching this with Sir Bunkle of the Yard, and we both made this comment, and Thunder Rosa was very stiff on Tasha. Like, there was a few times you sort of went, hang on a minute, there's something going on here that we're not wise to. Either someone, I genuinely believe Tasha Steelz has said something to Thunder Rosa at some point, and it's pissed her off somewhat royally, because some of those kicks to the head look like they had some fucking venom behind them. However, I will move on to my favourite section that I enjoy during the women's matches, which is what I'm going to call the Mrs. Knockdown section now. Or the
Rolls off the tongue.
Or the MND section. There we go. The MND section. When Tasha Steelz came down, she went, "Is that a bloke?" And then I went, and then she went, "No, seriously, is it a bloke? Is it a bloke?" I went, "No." She went, "Oh, I thought it was a bloke." The commentators, I can't remember who said it now. I think it was Stu Bennett said, "No, we don't know much about Tasha Steelz." And then my good lady wife said, "It's because she's a man." And then as soon as Thunder, and the last thing, she made a lovely comment about Thunder Rosa, and she went, "Now," and she went, bit of silence. Thunder Rosa came out, she went, "Now she's cool. Can't they be more like her?" And then that was it.
Well, when it comes to Thunder Rosa, your missus summed her up quite nicely, I would say.
She is fucking cool, though.
Yeah.
She can break your heart and then fucking kick your ass after. She can. Oh, fucking hell. Yeah, come on. She's talented. I've summed it up perfectly, really. let's be honest. If you're with her, you would not cheat on her because that bitch would fuck you up. Let's be honest.
Oh, she'd rip your dick off and show it to you before you died.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it's some kind of like Aztec, like human sacrifice sort of thing as well. but if you're nice to her, she's going to be nice to you. I feel like we've gone off topic a bit, but I'm going to. But as with everything, I'm going to follow through.
Right.
Hope you're enjoying fucking lockdown, everyone.
Yeah. Well, first off, I love me some Thunder Rosa. And I'd quite like to a singlet attire thing. I think it was like quite a nice sort of throwback to like the 80s, like almost like a London Bray, can't even say it, a London Bray style. I think.
Steady.
I'm not saying she's plastered, but I'm just saying it sort of similar to what she used to wear back in the day.
Yeah, but I think Thunder Rosa is an ass kicking machine.
Well, yeah, that's a given. Because
like, she's sort of scary, like she'd fucking break your arm and break your nose.
Bunkle, help me out here. I think is it season 2? There's the Thunder Rosa when she's training for MMA.
Yeah, season 2. Well, they show it in season 2, but she was actually had the match beforehand.
Yeah, it was I think it was like episode 8 was a just pretty much sort of like a clip show, and they showed sort of like a lot of the backstage stuff of her MMA debut.
That's right, because I think there is the full thing on YouTube, or there's like a 20 odd minute clip, like short film where you can sort of watch training and build up and the actual aftermath and stuff for it. So whether that factored into the fact she was maybe a bit stiff, sort of coming straight off a fight, and she's probably a bit of ring rust, no doubt, maybe. But yeah, it was decent for what it was. It was short and it did what it had to do, which was just put Thunder Rosa over. One of them, if she was going into this match before her MMA bout, then sure they can't have her lose this match to then go into an MMA bout in case she wins. It's like, well, you just shit on your wrestling career, love.
Yeah. Well, it's probably worth mentioning, I forgot to bring this up as well, that on the same episode that Melina debuted, there was a tag match of Rosa and Marty Bell versus Alison Kay and Ashley Vox, where Rosa pinned Alison Kay, so she does have a victory over the women's champion, and that does go into the next NWA pay-per-view, which we'll talk about in a future show. Talking of NWA Power, there's then a clip from the Go Home episode 9, with Aaron Stevens getting a cheap victory over Ricky Starks with certain help from a man that's involved in the next match. Match number 3 is Trevor Murdoch versus the question mark. The master of karate. I'm pretty certain all 3 of you know who is under the mask of the question mark.
Yes.
Bobby Lashley.
The only real answer to that is there is not a face, so it's just a mask. You take the mask off, there's nothing there.
That'd be quite cool.
It's just a voice that you hear.
We've got very spiritual all of a sudden.
It's the infusions from the fields of Monrovia.
So the question mark is just basically Joe Cephas underneath a mask, and he is just the master of Mongrovian karate, or karate. And he has a new student Aaron Stevens, who was initially brought in to NWA Power as former professional wrestler turned actor, which included him dressing up as a pirate to promote his new film, Tropical Pirates, to which the crowd chanted Captain Morgan at him. Oh, there you go. There you go. Mr. Dark.
Sponsor us. Please, I'm so lonely.
So yeah, Aaron Stevens had seemingly quit NWA until the question mark got involved with Aaron Stevens' business with Ricky Starks, and so it's just basically taking him under his wing. So they're coming out. Aaron Stevens is in his karate gi and has the Mongrovian flag just basically underneath his arm. And I think it's Stu Bennett mentions that Aaron Stevens took up Mongrovian karate 3 weeks ago, and he's already a third-degree black belt.
Yes, he does.
Progress!
It's a nice touch. They do...
I don't know if they've established it in this timeline yet, but they actually call him Aaron Shooter Stevens. Or, as I like to call him by his initials, Ass.
Sounded like something out of LAOW then. Aaron Shooter Stevens. Bring him to the Gestapo.
I do know it was the what's they called, the other commentator, is it Joe
Galley.
That one, yeah. When they first come out, because of course they come out from the top of the stairs, he sees Aaron Stevens behind the question mark and just remarks, "Is he in a gi?"
Yes, he was the gi. So basically, the Aaron Stevens question mark relationship sort of mirrors the Miz and Damien Mizdow relationship, where Aaron Stevens will go "Hooray!" and the crowd will go "Boo!" But then the question mark will go "Rrr!" and everyone will go "Yay!"
It's a very simple dynamic they follow.
Very simple dynamic, but it does work. So Aaron Stevens asks everyone to be respectful for the Mongrovian national anthem.
I love it. Can I just say, I love it when he'll be just like people talking and like, "Shut up!" It's the funniest thing. I don't know why I find it. It would just be like mid talking, like, "You must respect them." I go, "Shut up!"
Oh no, it's when he first.
So funny.
When he first came into NWA, he was cutting a promo, and me and Bunker used to sort of message about back and forth. Like, you watched it, Alec? Yeah. And it was the first episode he appears on, and he's just cutting a promo, and something like all the fans are talking, he just goes, "Silence!" And all the crowds like think it's funny. Like yeah, he's a face, and it's like he does it again. And it's like, oh, we're meant to hate him.
Yeah. Aaron Stevens asks everyone to rise and be silent for the Mongrovian national anthem. He unveils the Mongrovian flag, which is just basically two animals either side with just like the question mark logo right in the middle. And the Mongrovian national anthem just basically consists of the question mark doing grunts.
Which Bunker can demonstrate now.
Yes.
Grunt for me, Bunko. Grunt for me.
The master of boys commands you to.
I may not know the national anthem from Monrovia, but I can tell you the two animals that are on the flag.
Yeah, go ahead. I think one of them was an anteater.
One of them's an anteater, and the other one is an emu.
It's an emu. That's okay. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but it's just basically the way the question mark does the Mongrovian national anthem. It's just basically like a. That's a great bit because like he's sort of like he's doing this, grunting song, not meant in that way, and he sort of like stops, and everyone just goes, "Way!" And then he just carries on again. It was fucking hilarious. It was so good. It was really good.
I'd love to know who pitched that in the writers' room. If like, yeah, you're going to sing the Mongrovian national anthem. What's that? We're just going to stand there and grunt for 2 minutes, and then you're going to stop. They're going to applaud. You're going to just carry on grunting. Like, okay, I can do that.
It's one of those things of just sort of like comedy that if WWE attempted to do it, it would just be WWE levels of not funny.
Yeah.
Like it's that kind of comedy which would work in other companies' hands. So the question mark's opponent is Trevor Murdoch. Trevor Murdoch, I was out of wrestling when he was, sort of. You could say that his main run was in WWE in a tag team with Lance Cade in the late 2000s. I think it was around that time. And I wasn't watching wrestling at the time, so yeah, I didn't really see that much of him. But from what I've seen of matches that he's had, I mean, he's had matches with Ricky Starks, Caleb Conley, had a really good match with Nick Aldis. He's a very good worker. I've been quite impressed from what I've seen of Trevor Murdoch. I think he's a good hand to have.
Yeah, he's always seemed solid. I mean, when you talk about his main run as the tag team with Lance Cade, but wrestling was on a bit of a down then, really, and I mean, not suggesting that it's on a massive high now, but how can I put it? It's not something to rave about. Let's put it that way.
No, but that
is
basically what he's synonymous for.
Yeah, and he is talented. I mean, he was trained by Harley Race, so he's got to have something going for him, So, he's I've been impressed with him every time I've seen him. I thought he was. I didn't have high hopes when I saw him come out that first time on Power. I thought shit, but
he does have a bit of a gut on him.
A bit of a gut. He makes me look slim.
Yeah, but that AXC guy had a bit of a gut, and he can get over and work a crowd. So we'll handle slam, baby.
Yeah, he can fucking slam you like there's no tomorrow.
Hello, you.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh yes,
yeah,
you do. I will say this, guys. I will mention that doesn't Stevens call the question mark the 1998 Acapella champion of Monrovia?
Yes,
which
he does.
Is just so. I mean, it's really just funny. And I've also mentioned down if Vacant was a wrestler, it would look like the question mark. Yeah. That's when, listeners, that's when one of my jokes actually gets taken seriously and is actually correct. You all need to be fucking worried round about now.
The fact you've said that just makes me hope there's like a whole Scooby-Doo bit where it's like, no, let's see the question mark. Really? Take the mask off. It's like, vacant? And then there's just got a tweet goes out on Twitter going, I would have gone away for you. It wasn't you meddling smarks.
Whoa, right? Like Zoink Scoob.
Turned out like Jim Cornette or something in a mask, like.
Oh, that'd be brilliant. No, it wouldn't. Right. I mean, no, it wouldn't. Could you imagine? Actually, let's put like a thing out saying, who is the most ridiculous person that could be under that mask? We've thrown Jim Cornette out there. Let's fucking throw something else out there. Trish Stratus.
Trish Stratus.
Nick Dinsmore, a.k.a. Eugene.
Oh, God.
Shane O'Mac.
Oh, yeah. Full on needs to be someone like not affiliated with like NWA at all. Like, he needs to either be like someone in fucking AEW or something. Or just like some like random indie talent. Some like random
Orange
talent.
Cassidy. Orange Cassidy. Oh, I love that man.
Just for like,
I'll see myself out.
Let's find out the question mark really is. Take the mask off. Hornswoggle.
Diddly 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 diddly.
Carlito.
Primo.
Primo.
Los Matadores!
As long as Carlito said it in like his proper accent as well, like I would have gone away with it. One of you meddling smokes. Then just like bites onto a random apple that's come out of nowhere.
He spits in the face of people who don't like karate.
The fact that I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for your meddling smacks, that's not cool.
All right, Bob Marley.
I didn't think it was that debating.
You're making me crazy. Right, go on.
With regards to the match, I didn't really make many notes bar the finish. I just thought that it wasn't, bar like a brief chop fest in the corner. I didn't think this was much in terms of sort of like a technical match, really. But the question mark is so fucking over with this crowd. So over. I mean, there's a case with sort of like the second lot of tapings, so between like episode 6 and 9, where I think there's like an occasion where the question mark wrestles Ricky Starks, and it's the first evidence that I've seen of the NWA having smarky crowds, because they're just sort of like, yay, question mark, boo, Ricky Starks, was Ricky Starks meant to be sort of like this up and come babyface, and you know.
Yeah, I think it's. I would say it's quite amazing how question mark has got over, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, this match, I've literally learned nothing special, but the crowd was into it. So
yeah.
I think they just used it to set up for further shows.
In terms of the question mark, what we've learned is, yes, wrestling fans love their professional wrestlers, i.e. Nick Aldis, i.e. your John Moxleys, i.e. your Seth Rollins, i.e. your AJ Styles. But we also love dumb shit, like the question mark, like Orange Cassidy. We love dumb shit. Hence why I'm here. But it's that entertainment factor. It's that bit that sort of, it loosens it all up a bit. It sort of makes it entertaining. It makes you laugh. It makes you smile. It's fun to watch.
It's the character work.
Yeah. It's brilliantly done. It's something so simple and so stupid. It has no right to work at all. But it does.
I can see the look on Bunkle's face. Bunkle's like, yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Come on, Bunkle, I'm ready for another fucking argument. Let's go. Come on. Let's fucking go.
I'm sorry, but Pockets can go fuck himself. But you know, I don't. Pockets, yeah, because he has his hands in his pockets at all fucking times. Right. Pockets.
We were all looking at each other going, who the fuck's Pockets?
I can tell none of you listen to Jim Cornette, that's for sure.
Who's Pockets? Is this like a childhood friend who you miss a lot?
Like, the only nicknames that sorry Coxie, I will let you talk in 1 second, but the only nicknames that I can remember Jim Cornette giving is I seem to remember he called Kenny Omega Kenny Olivier. Yeah. And didn't he call Baron Corbin Possum King?
Yes, just called him Possum King.
Yeah.
He also calls Joey Janela like is it Jelly or Joey Jelly or something, or Jelly
Nutella.
Jelly Nutella, that's all.
Yeah. And he calls the Young Bucks Road Warrior Buck and Balding Buck.
Anyway, getting back to the match, because this isn't an AEW podcast.
Not yet.
No, because AEW sucks.
I think it's part of that thing of like, the fact he's got over is because of the likes of, like, back in the NWA, you had guys like the Masked Assassin, and like you had like even like a guy called like the Masked Wrestler, and sort of that. I think that's gone from that sort of trend of like, right, we'll bring a masked guy in who doesn't really do much. We'll get him over as best we can with the crowd. And there's a company called UWA that was ran in the UK, and they even had a few shows in Blackpool that I even went to. But they ran on a channel back in 99, 2000 called Live TV or something like that, or the Live channel it was called. And they had a character called Big Papa T, who was basically a guy in an all-black singlet, black leather mask, black boots. He'd come out, he'd do a few punches, his opponent would try and hit him, he'd no-sell, he'd just put him in a random submission and he'd win, and he was somehow over. Like, not a fucking clue how. Like, but it worked. And that must be sort of, they probably followed the same formula. There'll be some sort of weird formula of like, yeah, fans seem to like masked guys, don't really do much, so we'll go with that.
The finish of this match, Trevor Murdoch, as he's scaling the ropes to nail his top rope bulldog, is manhandles the Mongrovian flag that's being held by one of the question mark's many students in the many gyms that are opening up over the United States. And as Trevor Murdoch is dealing with the distraction from Aaron Stevens, the sight of the flag being desecrated sends the question mark into a rage. And then as Trevor Murdoch gets back into the ring, question mark nails him with a double thrusting strike to the throat and pins Trevor Murdoch in 5 minutes 55. As I say, the match wasn't a technical masterpiece, but the crowd was into it, so it made it serviceable.
Yeah, 100% agreed. Not much more you can say.
No. Yeah.
Did the job, did the business. On to the next one.
Yeah, okay. So before the next match, clip from episode 9 of NWA Power of the Rock and Roll Express capturing the NWA tag team titles from the Wildcards for the 9th time, which leads us on to the subsequent rematch for the NWA World Tag Team Championships. The champions, Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, the Rock and Roll Express, taking on the team of Tom Latimer and Royce Isaacs, the Wildcards. I will say, throughout this entire pay-per-view, as the wrestlers are coming out making their entrance, Joe Galli does a very good job of documenting the stories that are leading up to the matches, sort of like, doing like little recaps of how each match came to be, which is a positive. I have in my notes that Ricky Morton is the much more competent worker of the Rock and Roll Express, because it just seems to me that every time sort of Robert Gibson got in, he was incredibly limited.
Yeah, definitely. Ricky Morton's always been the worker of the pair, but I think Ricky Morton, he obviously, he seems good for his age, whereas Robert Gibson seems his age.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And well, that's not a knock.
But... No, because the thing is, like, both of them are, like, at the very least in their early 60s.
Yeah.
Maybe late 50s. Late 50s, early 60s, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like but I mean, even when you look at the mic work, if they're cutting a promo, it's Ricky Morton who's cutting that promo, because Ricky Morton is the guy with the talent. And I was listening to Jim Cornette earlier today, actually, and he was talking about how, the only not that it was ever discussed as a serious thing that they were going to do, but if they were, because they didn't want to break up the Rock and Roll Express, but they knew Ricky Morton was the talent. Yeah. Mm. So you wouldn't put the NWA title on Ricky Morton, because the Rock and Roll Express are in another building in another state drawing just as much money as the NWA champ is, because they're that good. Yeah. But I think it shines through nowadays even more so, that Ricky Morton he does most of the work in the ring, and he does all the promos out of the ring. I think there's a clear reason for it, and I think, I still think he's quite, for his age, he's quite good.
Yeah.
I will say, what the living hell was Homicide and Eddie Kingston and the Dawsons doing in this match?
Waste of time.
What the fucking hell were they doing?
I think it was episode 5 when the Rock and Roll Express made their debut. I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was Homicide and Eddie Kingston against the Dawsons, and Kingston and Homicide have basically put up their shot for the NWA title. The NWA titles against the Dawsons, and I think there was a case of the Wildcards interfering, and then the Rock and Roll Express came out to sort of make the save. So I think it's just sort of like a way of like combating each other's interference spots, even though they didn't really make too much mention of it.
I hated this match. I really fucking, because there were some shitty comedy spots with the Wildcards. The Wildcards are actually a very good tag team, two very good wrestlers, and to lower them down to doing shitty little, oh, we've bumped into each other, oh no, let's fall over, them kind of spots is a little bit below that. I think it's below them. Oh, that shitty comedy. Also, saying that, Royce Isaacs, you look like a bad guy from a shit western. Sort them boots out, pal. I mean, come on. You look like someone like Clint Eastwood's going to hunt down and kill. You need to sort it out, pal. Sort it out. That's all I'm going to say. But I don't like. I like the Rock and Roll Express, but I don't at the same time.
Yeah.
Because this is what they produce.
Yeah,
I produce at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I feel exactly the same way about the Rock and Roll Express. Really, I mean, Matt, I understand what they were trying to do in this match. They're trying to make it seem that the Rock and Roll Express are they have more continuity as a tag team because they've been around longer. The whole story of the Wildcards is they were thrown together and they've not been tag teaming very long. So you know, the stupidity with like the silly bumping into each other's spots and stuff like that. The idea, what they're trying to portray, what they're trying to put across to me is that, well, this doesn't happen to Rock and Roll Express because they've been together for so long. They know each other like the back of their hand. Whereas these two guys don't yet. These two guys have all the physical attributes and on paper have everything to beat the Rock and Roll Express, except for that experience and that continuity. And I'm probably looking into it a bit too deep, but that's what I do with wrestling.
These are two very old men coming up against Tom Latimer and Royce Isaac. If I just walked into him, I'd probably be in a coma for 2 weeks. God knows what these are. It borders on the realms of. Let's be honest. I'm going to throw this out there. Considering the global bastard and everything, if the global bastard didn't happen, and we're continuing life as it is, even though the global bastard is fucking off now, the Rock and Roll Express would have won the Crockett Cup this year, and then that's them retired and done and gone. Yeah. That would have been them now. I just feel this match sort of summed up what they are in terms of a tag team now, which is nothing more than nostalgia. Now, are we putting these two at risk more? Because I remember speaking to Lewis about this in regards to head spots when we spoke about Ibushi and who else was it? Naito? Ibushi and Naito, was it, Lewis?
We had a discussion. Yeah, it was Ibushi and Naito at the G1 Supercard.
And these two people, these two amazing wrestlers in a row, don't get me wrong, basically throw each other on their heads for the form of entertainment. Now we are seeing the Rock and Roll Express throwing themselves round at the grand age of, well, they're in the 60s, almost 70s.
Yeah, early. I think, I'm pretty sure like Ricky Morton's 62, 63.
And let's be honest, the bodies are beat up. We've got to be honest with you. The bodies are beaten up. They've got. I hope to God when we do get the Crockett Cup going again, they win that, and then that's them done. But when I spoke to Lewis about the when we were talking about Royal Quest and the other New Japan events. There's sort of like an addiction when we spoke about PCO. PCO is a very, very good example of what the Rock and Roll Express are going through at the minute. They are doing stuff that gets the crowd over, that gets the crowd popping, that gets them on the side. It's a very addictive thing. It's an addictive thing, I think. As a performer, I've never been in that position myself, but personally, if someone goes, "Go on, Anthony," yeah, I'm like, "Oh, fucking hell, yeah." Even when I'm like sports day or something, I'm in dad's race, I'm like, "Fucking look at me go, lads." It's, you know what I mean, though. You laugh, but I'm always last. Let's be honest. But that's the thing. Cheers and praise are a very addictive thing. So when Ricky is doing he's doing Canadian destroyers for fun. He's doing side dives for fun. There's a part of you there's two sides that goes, oh, that's awesome. He's old and he's doing that. And there's another side that you goes, he's old. He shouldn't be doing that. There's a real scary point that if they do this, it's just as bad as the Ibushi and Naito. One day, I touch wood, I'm wrong. But one day it could go horrifically wrong.
Yeah.
And in terms of how old Rock and Roll Express are, and NWA don't need that. NWA do not need a serious injury on their hands. God bless them.
I'll say, they're 63 and 61 respectively, and Ricky Morton's the 63-year-old.
Jesus.
Exactly. That's the worrying. God knows what health problems he has, because we don't know. God knows his back is fucked. His knees are probably fucked. Everything else is fucked probably. Yet he's still doing suicide dives out. And we're going, yeah, that's fantastic for a guy of his age, forgetting that he's probably snapping himself in two one day. It's scary. It's scary to watch sometimes.
Well, there's no, there is an argument that could be said that when or if the NWA gets back into tapings, that they can't take a page out of what New Japan Pro Wrestling have done since they've gone back, which is just basically do the New Japan Cup that was meant to be going on when the COVID-19 pandemic properly hit. There's no reason why they can't do that with the Crockett Cup and just sort of basically get the swan song for the Rock and Roll Express as early as they possibly can when they get back into production, rather than waiting until next year when they're a bit more worn down.
What's the capacity of that little studio that they have? Should we say 250, something like that, is it? 300?
255 sold out.
What? I know there's certain restrictions going on, but let's look at the grand scheme of things. Currently in Australia, I know, in the AFL, the Aussie Rules League, and their rugby league, they're letting about 400 to 500 fans in if they want. If they want to let them in the stadiums, they can. Now, when everything's dying down, I'm going to talk about I'm not talking about next week, obviously, because let's be honest, you've got Donald Trump as your president, so good luck with that, guys. Things are going to have to die down around October, November time. What's stopping NWA? Because let's be honest, AEW have their little crowd, don't they? AEW have their little crowd. WWE have their little performance center crowd. NWA have a big advantage, I feel, in coming out of the global bastard, in terms of they have that very small number of fans coming into that arena, and they can put on shows on a weekly basis easily. They get hundreds of thousands of viewers. They get the fans in the arena. It's like it almost never stopped happening. You get the same. It's like just watching a show. It's just like watching a normal everyday show, while WWE and AEW and Impact are still without fans. They have a big advantage coming up, and I hope they take advantage of it. And in terms of the Crockett Cup, when they come back, the first thing they must do is start the Crockett Cup. Forget about Power. Forget about anything else. Do the Crockett Cup. That's going to get people watching. It's going to get people's attention, especially in the wrestling community. And people are going to tune in. I'm going to tune in if they were to announce tomorrow on their Twitter, NWA back, Crockett Cup next week, and have weekly episodes of this Crockett Cup and string it out for a bit. They have a big advantage. Big advantage. Something that ourselves would be very, very interested in watching. It would be better than watching with no fans at all, with deaf silence. They have a big advantage with that studio. I hope they take advantage of it.
I think the thing with NWA is that they're taking the pandemic a hell of a lot more seriously than AEW and particularly WWE are taking it at the moment. So I would think that they're going to be a little bit. They're going to be like how New Japan dealt with the pandemic. That until we see the backside, well, I mean, sort of like it's different with regards to America and Japan because New Japan only starting up events. They only started up events when the state of emergency was lifted from Japan. Now, obviously, America aren't going to do that because, you know, America, a lot like the UK, are incredibly ignorant. But I would think that until the backside of this COVID-19 pandemic is in the rearview mirror, they won't risk it. I don't think anyway.
It's a tricky one because we look at the situation as it is. WWE have obviously been doing their thing and doing it very fucking badly. AEW have been doing their thing and doing it slightly less badly. Let's be honest. I'm going to talk about science for a bit. Sorry. All these things have a shelf life. Eventually this will go, and this will pass. It's whoever pushes start first. WWE are itching to get their fans back in them seats with live events, with tens of thousands of people. They honestly couldn't give a shit. That's the only thing they're worried about at the minute. Possibly same with AEW as well. That's the only thing they care about. Getting fans back in them seats. Let's do it. Let's have it back to normal, as it were. Like nothing happened. Like there's not a disease killing people. It's fantastic. But with NWA, they can fill that arena, that small little studio that they have, and still have the viewers, i.e. me and yourselves and people that are listening. People are still going to buy the pay-per-views or register on Fight TV because it's their production. It's a complete production. It's not patched together with performance enhancement talent in the stands or with masks on that they may or may not be allowed to wear. Or with screen set up. They have the big advantage. And if they're going to cash in now, which I think they should do, because let's be honest, they should, have the Rock and Roll Express win the Crockett Cup, string the Crockett Cup out a number of weeks, have like the main event of an episode of Power as an episode of the Crockett Cup, and let's string it out. Have a great time with it. And still have that 255 fans in there. Because it's going to work. It's going to work.
Yeah, that's it. I don't think they'll take the risk until as I say, it's in the background.
Oh, go on, do it. Everyone else has. Hashtag pray for Leicester.
Anyway, so we kind of got a little bit sidetracked with with all that. The finish of the match, of this tag title match, there's a brawl on the outside between Outlaw Inc., which is Eddie Kingston and Homicide,
Is that what
and
they're called?
Dawson's.
Is that what they're called?
Outlaw Inc. Yeah. I don't know. But anyway, this brawl on the outside distracts Royce Isaacs, allowing the Rock and Roll Express to nail the double drop kick, and they get the win to retain their titles in 5 minutes and 5. And you've already said that you've hated this match, then we've got that covered. Uncle Coxie, thoughts?
Yeah, like I said, I understand what they were trying to do. It was the worst match up on the card up until now, I think, just because it's felt a bit sloppy to me. But it did what it was meant to do.
Yeah, I think it's for me. It's like Ant said, and what you guys said. Like the Rock and Roll Express, like 61 and 63. So I think it was a case of, like just going through the motions. Like the match itself only goes 5 minutes something.
Yeah, 5
And
over 5.
it's pretty much like a trademark. Like you could pretty much close your eyes and like you could just sort of sit there on mute and just be like, right, Robert's just tagged in, and well, Ricky's been worked over before, and so he just tagged into Robert, who's now like making the comeback, and yeah, it's over. I was a bit sidetracked by the bloody Canadian destroyer. That was evidently more so the opponent than Ricky Morton.
Yeah,
it was akin to the Virgil destroyer.
It's one hell of a backflip, right. Wasn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. You hold on to me, and I'll do a backflip. And of course, like
I'll lie on your back and you do a backflip.
Well, like I was saying before as well about the camera problems, this sort of factors in here where there's a brawl on the outside with the camera's focused on, and it just quickly try to cut away, because there's that limitation of the cameras. As it's sort of panning around, you just sort of catch the end of the drop kick and then going into the pin, which sort of killed it for me a bit, like sort of thing.
There's an exact same camera problem with the national title match, which we'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, the fact that I didn't really comment on how I thought this match was sort of says it all. It was 5 minutes. You know, it was unoffensive. You know, Ricky Morton was good for his age. You know, Latimer and Isaacs were fine, and Robert Gibson was pretty bad, I must say. So Stu Bennett and Joe Galley, they announced the next pay-per-view taking place in January, and they also referenced the fact that it will be the return of the NWA Television Championship, which we'll get to in a later episode. So at the interview podium, Dave Marquez is with Eli-Drake, is asked which camp he's going to be in for the main event. He puts himself in the James Storm camp. I must say, as he's cutting this promo, he's literally just got a wad of chewing gum in his mouth, and yeah. I'm quite surprised that he was able to. Fuck you, Anthony.
Dummy, yeah.
I was.
Dummy, yeah.
I was quite impressed the fact that he was able to keep the chewing gum in his mouth while still cutting this promo. And then he basically, he goes to finish up this promo by basically calling Ken Anderson a speed bump on his road, which leads to the attack by Ken Anderson. Anderson grabs a chair, wraps the chair around Eli Drake's neck, and shoves him into the ring post, and then does a mic check in the ring onto the chair itself. Stu Bennett went really over the fucking top with this attack, because he just basically said, "Oh my God, I think that I might have paralysed him. I don't think we should be concerned. Don't think we should be concerned. He's just been paralysed. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is the end of if this is the end of Eli Drake's career." And the fact that he's just like basically walking out, albeit with a little bit of help, sort of put like a kibosh on it. But despite the fact Stu Bennett was trying to like sabotage this attack, I felt it was, there was confusion earlier on during the match, but I felt this sort of like solidified it, as in Drake is the babyface, Anderson is the heel. At least that's, cut and dry now.
Yeah, to me, I felt like that's what this was here to do, basically. It was here to say, look, Anderson's the heel now, we know that's what you want. Drake's the face, we know that's what you want. Though I will point out, I'd like the fact that in the NWA, like, one chair shot, well, maybe two in this case, or one shot with that bar from behind the turnbuckle does damage. People don't just no-sell it and get straight back up. It's like, oh, it actually means something when you do this. So I do appreciate that quite a lot.
I will say that I love Eli Drake's promos. He is because Dave Marquez was sort of say, well, it's Eli Drake. What have you got to say to us? And there's that silence, and he goes, let me talk to you.
It's that
good.
Old,
that's so
it's
good.
that
It
old,
builds suspense.
It's that old school wrestling feel that he's able to get across. And, you know, he's one of those guys who could probably have like one of these WWE scripted promos and he'd be able to like make good work of it.
He's so good. He's such a good speaker and he's so good in the ring. You've got to start building. To hell with Marty Scurll and God knows what else you're doing with everything else now. You've got to build this guy up as a legitimate challenger to Nick Aldis, or make him at least feel like he can be, because I don't feel like there's anyone else in terms of on the mic, in the ring. It's just he's the guy. Eli Drake is the man to replace the man, shall we say? If there ever was a man to replace a man, I'm an expert on boys, not men.
Yeah, can I just say, Anthony, thank you very much for stealing my thunder and just making exactly the same point that I made earlier on.
It's okay. But... what I'm here to do for you, my friend. Oh, I've seen that before.
Foxy, did you have any thoughts on this segment?
Nothing really, other than like I was pretty much shitting bricks when I saw him go do the mic check onto the chair, and it was one of them because I've not seen the pay-per-view since I first watched it, like after Bunkle and Daz, because I was at a work thing I couldn't get out of because it was a work paid event, and it was like, you must work this. It's like, great. So then by the time we got finished and got away, it's like I was texting Bunkle, and Bunkle's like, it's like 2:30 in the morning. It's like, yeah, it's nearly finished, so it's up to you if you want to come round or not.
What a night it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty much just that thing of like the mic check on, like it was a decent promo. The mic check on the chair terrified me because it was like, there's only one way you can really take this, and Anderson can't see where Eli Drake's actually going. So it's more so on Eli Drake to make sure he lands properly and doesn't decapitate himself or something. Like, so. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more from Eli Drake in the future. And, yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. Dummy, yeah.
And so we'll move on to match number 5. It's a tag team women's match. Melina and Marty Bell against the team of the NWA Women's Champion Allysin Kay and Ashley Vox. Or is it? Because, as you know, she was apparently injured due to Thunder Rosa earlier on in the night. I made the case during the Drake-Anderson thing of the confusion of who's the face and who's the heel. You could probably say the same thing for Allysin Kay as well, because, as I say, me watching all the episodes of Power leading up to this event, Allysin Kay, for the most part, has been an utter bollocks. She's been a proper stuck-up champion, and even going so far as to sort of like put down supposedly one of her best friends, Marty Bell, of just saying, look, you're a good wrestler, but you're not even in my league. And then she's so surprised when her best friend, Marty Bell, turns on her. And it's literally just a case of, well, you had this coming because, you know, you were being an insincere dickhead to one of very few friends that you've got in the promotion. So I'm just literally in the camp of, you got what you deserved. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. To be honest, I don't remember when she comes out. Her music is obviously heel music,
and she's literally there.
She does the pinky thing. What's the pinky thing about?
I don't know. Is
it sort of like a regal thing?
Well,
that's
what I attributed to
drink
it. It's royals drinking a cup of tea in it.
So basically, she's above the people.
Yeah, You're clearly a heel.
Pinky out. Say, get your pinky out. Get your pinky out. Say, get your pinky out. You're welcome, Alison Kay. You're very, very fucking welcome.
I'm going to say, if she starts chanting that, people are going to start whipping their knobs out, and it's her own fault.
Look, whoa. No one's going to stop whipping the knobs out at fucking anything. No. Right.
Well, you could do your impression of an elephant if you're sort of like whipping your dick out, or just turning your pockets inside out. I learned that from the Thin Blue Line. I've been watching the Thin Blue Line on Amazon Prime. It's quite underrated. It is quite underrated. So as I say, Ashley Vox apparently injured earlier. Stu Bennett pretty much says that she's got two choices. She can either take them on 2-on-1 or just forfeit the match. She doesn't forfeit the match because David Marquez announces that Alison Kay does have an opponent, and it's ODB of
Partly, you mean?
TNA. What?
ODD. He does have an opponent.
Oh, she does have a partner, I should say. She does have a partner. It's ODDB.
One dirty bitch.
Yes. Oh, is it? Oh, right, okay.
You just think I was making a comment now?
No. She's probably known these days, one dirty bitch, due to the size of her wabbos.
God bless her, amen. Right.
There is a little bit of a trivia here. Did you know that in the initial, the very first Tough Enough back in 2000, 2001, whenever it was, ODB was actually part of the audition process.
I did
not. How did it go for her? Well, fucking spoiler.
Well,
how did it fucking go for her?
Well, the fact that she didn't get into sort of like the tryout period is probably evidence enough. But if you want sort of like the whole lowdown of like the very first season of Tough Enough, I definitely recommend going and listening to I know the Attitude Era podcast did like a full run through of season 1 of Tough Enough. I definitely recommend it because there are like a couple of names that pop up like later on in pro wrestling that's quite interesting to see them on. I literally had in my notes, ODB is Ashley Vox's replacement, and Christ almighty, she looks rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You look rough. You look fucking rough, love.
Very rough. And I pretty much described...
Very rough, then. Very rough.
Oh,
so very rough. You join it down. This is
like I said,
ODB. Bit of a dog.
I described this. I described this match as pretty much being a 2-on-1 handicap match until ODB got the hot tag, because like literally before she got the hot tag, she did fucking nothing. She just stood on the apron and was just sort of like, she made a comment here or there, and then when she did get in the ring, it was fine up until the finish.
Yeah, the finish was a clusterfuck.
Oh my god! I mean, because like, from what I've seen of Marty Bell, she's a competent worker, and when she was in with Alison Kay, the match was fine. Like, I mean, keep Melina out on the outside because she's fucking dog shit. That's not me being mean. That's me being truthful.
She's a walking legend.
I beg to differ.
Talking, swallowing legend.
Oh, lightning strikes again.
I am Dark Lightning. Daz Lightning.
So yeah, it's pretty much the finish. ODB hits one of the shittest TKOs I've ever seen on Marty Bell.
So bad. It was so bad.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, it was so bad.
I mean, like I thought that Sable hitting a TKO on Mark Merritt at WrestleMania 14 was bad. This was worse. This was fucking worse. And yeah, the baby, I don't know whether you could call them babyface. The team of ODB and the Allison Kay pick up the win, 7 minutes 25. This was nothing, really.
Dog shite.
Yeah.
Dog rough.
Dog rough.
If you thought the last match was bad, oh boy.
Oh boy. And this went longer.
Let's be honest, Melina's shit anyway. Just keep her away from actually wrestling. I don't mind if she wants to stand there and talk. Fine.
It's a talk piece, fine.
Yeah. But in terms of an actual in-ring talent, I mean, I'm pretty sure my dog will have had a shit in the other room. That's got more talent than Melina does.
Depends what you're feeding it.
But yeah, she's awful. I don't understand Allysin Kay's gimmick. I don't understand what she's trying to do. But maybe that's just me. And ODB was clearly there for do as little as possible, pick up the paycheck, and leave. Yeah, they're just. I don't know if there was a redeeming feature about this match.
Of course there wasn't. So,
Lewis, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can see you, you dick. Right, over we go. No, this match was such a sack of shite. Fuck me sideways. I'm going to say I made this comment, and I don't think I should have made this comment, but I've written it down, so I'm going to say it. I said, when there is another woman grabbing her breasts and flashing her fanny, and you're still not the sluttiest one there, you've got to take a fucking look at yourself. And also, I'm going to start the MND section of this, which is the Mrs. Not Daz section. In terms of Allysin Kay, she went nice boots and quite a nice arse, to be fair. Melina looks like a Kardashian. Marty Bell is a Scary Spice wannabe. Midway through the match, she went typical fucking women bitching, just get on with it.
This is coming from a woman, by the way.
This is my wife. This is not me. This is my wife.
This is not. Realise it's the Master of Boys, but the Mrs. Not Daz is actually a Mrs.
It's not the Master of Boys, but the Master of Boys. She went, in terms of ODB, she went, fucking hell, is that Blackpool's first woman wrestler? If you've been to Blackpool, you know what I'm talking about. You'll find that funny. In terms of, there's a bit where I think Melina tags in Marty Bell, and they have like a little talk on the shout, and she looked at them both and went, yeah, they're defo lesbos. She looked at ODB and went, put your fucking tits away. We can all see them. No need to point them out. And, was it Stu Bennett that said we need to see more of ODB in TWA? TWA? Oh, God. I'm having a stroke up here. NWA. He said, not much of her left to see, to be honest. That's the This Is Not Dissectioned. We need a jingle for that, by the way. We need a jingle. This is not dissection.
We need to construct a soundboard, to be honest with you.
Just of her thoughts.
Yeah.
I'll wake her up. No, I'm not brave enough to do that. However, if you all talk loud enough. But on a serious note, I like Allysin Kay as a wrestler. I think she's awesome. Whether she's a face or a heel, she'll work that out eventually, whatever. To hell with it. Marty Bell, again, she'll work herself out in the end. ODB, she had a bit in TNA. She was popular. She's coming back on the stage, nothing else. Melina. Okay. Melina, I'm going to put you in the same bracket, love. as Enzo Amore. Okay. And I mean this, and I say this because I care about you, and as a fellow human being. Stop. You've done your bit. You've been good. Yes, it's all good. Yes, everything's happened. You had Dave. That's fantastic. But please stop.
How dare you!
We've all heard the stories, and I think it's just best for you and for your happiness and your safety. Just stop and just let things be. I mean, you go on and do what you want to do. Make shit TikTok videos. I think that's what you're meant to be, a shit TikToker, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But please, for the sake of us, for the 200 and odd people who will want to watch NWA, for the hundreds of thousands of people that are watching, please stop. We care about you deeply. We don't want we don't know. We don't want to laugh at you. I don't want to laugh at you. I don't want to make jokes about you. I don't think that's fair. I just want you to live a happy life, doing whatever it is that you're good at, which you will find out eventually what you're good at. That's not your fault that you've not found that yet. We just want you to stop and just not be on YouTube and just stay away from wrestling because we care.
Anthony, I'm going to give you a new gimmick.
I'm a spokesperson of Oxfam.
I was just going to call you the counsellor, but spokesperson of Oxfam is better, so much better.
No, if I was a counsellor, I'd be solving shit, not fucking making it worse. No, but on a serious note, Melina, fuck off and do something else. Shit. You scream and bait, you do the splits, fantastic. I could do that on a normal Saturday night when I've had enough Guinness. So, let's be honest, your next special, love, piss off. Next match, please.
Coxie. Have to get Coxie's force.
Yeah, we'll have a rinse repeat really with the tag match, isn't it, really? I thought, just whack, change the agendas round, and you got pretty much exactly the same match. Allison Kay got worked over, tagging ODB finished it.
I thought you were going to do love a rinse repeat. It's in sort of like, sound the deck. Paint the fence. That's a reference to a different podcast.
It's the Phoenix Pod.
Plug. Right. So after that debacle of a match, there's a bit of a recap with Storm and Aldis and their referee picks, and they did a better job of doing it than I have done just now. But I'm still trying to get over Councillor Daz. Just trying to Councillor not Daz.
Councillor Daz.
Councillor not Daz.
I'm going to run for Prime Minister next year. Next 4 years? Yeah. Vote for me. Well, don't you start crossing yourself. Hell fire. Since Liverpool won the league, I've started going back to church.
Anyway, co-main event match number 6 is for the NWA National Championship. The champion colt-cabana versus Ricky Starks versus student Aaron Stevens. Colt-Cabana, since we've seen him last on the Crockett Cup, lost and then regained the national championship from James Storm, primarily on, I believe it was episode 6. Either 5 or 6 are NWA Power, but he's been the champion there for a couple of weeks. And Ricky Starks was involved in a non-title match with Colt-Cabana, was interrupted by Aaron Stevens and question mark, and then Aaron Stevens just got a couple of victories over both Cabana and Ricky Starks, so that's why he's incorporated into this match. Aaron Stevens has changed out of his gi and has gone for horrid flesh-coloured jocks. Now, I just like Aaron Stevens, flesh-coloured, like anything, will work on, say, for example, Terry Runnels in a flesh-coloured bathing suit in a bikini contest. That works. Using flesh-coloured jocks for yourself doesn't work, because
I disagree with that, because that's why I got married.
Were they called birthday jocks by any chance?
No, not Daz jocks.
But yeah, they would. It was quite hard watching this match, to be honest with you, because I was just look away, children. It's how I would describe Aaron Stevens' jocks, because yeah, they blended in. They did.
They blended in so nicely.
He's a blue athlete. He's blue. He's a blue athlete.
Blue.
Not only I guess that's last season. He's filthy. He's fucking foul-mouthed.
So I had a note that Stevens only gets on offense due to interference from the question mark. There's a lovely float over sling blade from Ricky Starks. Like, he does sort of like as if he's going for like the Rock's float over DDT, but sort of like it seems mid-move he transitions into a sling blade, which I quite liked, quite enjoyed. There's also a nice combination of drop kick to Colt-Cabana and then senton's Stevens as he's on the floor. Yeah, I just had to note that whenever Cabana and Starks were in the ring working with each other, I thought the match was quite good. Aaron Stevens, I'd put in sort of like the same bracket as maybe sort of like the Honky Tonk Man, where it's like a decent gimmick, but in terms of like in-ring quality, it's, you know, I can think of much better. The finish comes when Cabana tries a Superman pin on Ricky Starks, but he's so close to the ropes it allows the question marks to hit him with a Mongolian thrust, and more work with the static cameras. Apparently Ricky Starks hits a spear on Colt-Cabana, although we don't see it because the camera is looking at Aaron Stevens, who runs into the ring as the question mark deals or subdues Ricky Starks, and Aaron Stevens pins Colt-Cabana and wins the national title in 12 minutes 20. As I say, when it was Colt and Ricky in the ring, I thought the match was decent, but I felt that although I enjoy Aaron Stevens as a character, I don't enjoy him too much as a wrestler, and I felt he sort of dragged it down a little bit. And we didn't get to see the finish properly because of static camera.
Yeah, I'm inclined to. I agree with what you say. I think Aaron Stevens is hilarious. The flesh-coloured trunks, I think, are hilarious. And he gets billed as a weight he refuses to disclose.
Yeah,
fucking hilarious.
We've all been there.
I'm still there now. But the character and the gimmick is brilliant. I agree, in ring he's average, and decidedly so. I think this match does a really good job of making Ricky Starks look good. I think it does a really good job of making Colt-Cabana look pretty good, and almost as we alluded to back with the Crockett Cup, looking a bit more serious in terms of. I understand that he can be silly, but he's actually a decent wrestler, and we're putting across he is a decent wrestler. But yeah, so I enjoyed the match. Shame about the finish, because like you say, you don't see it, which is really frustrating. But I think the way that they did it was great. They almost protected Aaron Stevens as much as they could by having him not in the match, and therefore not looking like he's being outclassed. Because, like I say, though he's competent and though he is average, these two guys are, they're putting on a show that's better than that. And so again, I thought they did a really good job. It's just a shame that 2 out of these 3 competitors are no longer in the NWA. So
I will say this: what in the fuck is a stroke daddy?
See, I take that as he's really good at wanking himself.
Yeah, what is a stroke daddy? Someone tell me what a stroke daddy is.
Well, I mean, given that Jeff Jarrett specialised in sort of calling people slap nuts, and his finisher, which was the skull crushing finale, was called the stroke, I'm assuming it's got something to do with masturbation. But I might be reading into that too much. Maybe he's a Jeff Jarrett fan.
And just like that, he's over with me. The colt-cabana does put on the Billy Goat's curse, which is sort of like a reverse Boston Crab thing. It looks bloody awful.
Yeah.
That looks bloody crap, that thing. Ricky Starks, I love this boy, by the way. Ricky Starks is fantastic. I'm happy / not happy. I'm happy he's gone to AEW because I think it'll give him more exposure, and obviously he's going to have some big matches there. He's going to get a bit more exposure and in terms of get more experience in terms of wrestling with the likes of Cody. He wrestled with Cody in his first match. I mean, how big could it get for him right now? Obviously, he's going to go on, hopefully, and have bigger and better matches. I feel bad because I think he was quite an important / major star in the making in NWA, and I think given a few years, given a bit of time, he could have been a world champion given the time, and given the have some patience with him, let him evolve as a character, as a wrestler. He could have been a world champion, but he's made that decision to go to AEW, and in the end, that's his decision. He thinks that's best for him. Obviously, I think AEW have gone, here's the contract, you're going to have your first match with Cody. He's seen dollar signs, he's seen stars, he's seen everything, and he's gone. I do feel, though, I was slightly disappointed when I did see him go to AEW. I was slightly disappointed. Although I was excited to see him there, I was disappointed because I think he could have been bigger and better in NWA. In terms of Aaron Stevens in this match, I mean, he hides behind a fucking Christmas tree for half of it. I mean, we've all been there on Christmas Day when family has had an argument, and obviously it's the husband's fault, Bunkle knows. And we hide behind the Christmas tree, as is customary, especially in our fucking house. Especially in my house. Can't speak for yours, but fuck me. I can certainly speak for mine. This was more about the dynamic between Aaron Stevens and the question mark rather than the match itself. I feel like that took over a bit. Developing the relationship between Stevens and the question mark rather than what was quite an important title match, in my opinion. The skin-coloured trunks. Okay. Mr. Stevens.
It's gonna be another stop over, isn't it?
You are a fantastic gentleman, I'm sure you are aware. And we all at the Lost Art think you're a fantastic person. But in terms of these skin-coloured trunks, stop. Please stop. Those skin colour trunks are meant for one thing: sex scenes in movies. You're not in any of them. So please.
Well, it could be if his acting gig goes downhill.
Please just don't wear them again. Have a nice black pair or maybe a purple number. Possibly red.
We should put into context, viewers. We are sort of like on. We have got sort of like the video cams in the Skype call, and literally all through Anthony sort of like saying, "Get different coloured jocks." He is looking straight into the camera, so it's as if he's like addressing us as well.
I feel I've got to step down from the comedy section of my character and become a bit more serious. I'm like Celine
This
Dion
is
with
comedy.
Celine Dion.
Near, far, wherever you are. But yeah, please wear just wear a different colour. You've got there's lots of colours. There's blue, there's green, red, orange even. Come on, if you're going for the skin colour, surely orange is a must. I mean, come on, let's be honest. Anyone else got any colours? I am a teacher. I've run out of colours after like 3. That's fantastic, isn't it?
Well, not really, but I think in terms of like the jocks, I think he does go in like his future with the NWA. He does go into sort of like wearing the karate gi from this point forward.
Whoever did that is a booking genius.
It was probably him. He's probably looked at himself on screen and was like, "Oh, that's a bit looped."
Well, to be fair, I still have a pair of Playboy boxers from when I was about 18, and they fit me. And I put them on the other day, and even I went, "Oh no, that's not a good look, is it?"
Well, each to their own.
Considering my gimmick and what I've become, I really shouldn't put them on again, should I?
As long as you didn't put them on and shout down to your wife like, "Bring me up another boy."
No,
Can I just say, she fucking hates Dalton Castle simply because of that. She finds him really cringe and everything, and finds him really unnerving. And as soon as I start doing, "Bring me up another boy," honestly, the past few podcasts I've been doing, and I've been doing this Master of Boys gimmick, I've literally heard the next morning and go, "I heard you calling for another boy, you know." And that is something your wife should never fucking say to you. That's something your wife should never ever say to you. I heard you doing what he says, by the way. And I'm like, "Look, Dalton Castle is really, really funny, isn't he?" And obviously I've met the bloke and he's very, very nice. We're going way off topic, but fuck it, it's Dalton Castle and it plays my gimmick. And I said, "Look, love, there's a picture of, I have 2 pictures of him with me. One a nice serious picture and one with him in his gimmick and putting his hands on my face. Don't look into that." And the way I describe it to my wife is, "Look, here's a picture of me and Dalton Castle. Look, he's stroking my face." Now, stroking's not the best word to use in that situation, listeners. Touching you can get away with. Stroking you cannot. Oh, God, that's a disclaimer. Please don't do that. Can we fucking move on, please? And there goes Lewis.
And to be fair, I'm waiting for the one day just like there'll be like a video podcast where it'll just be you by yourself. It'll start with you staring at the camera. It's like, "My fellow podcasters, stop. Just please stop."
We should make it a gimmick if we ever get into video podcasting. Oh dear. Right, Coxie thoughts before we move on to the main event.
Yeah, it was an alright match. I kind of lost points because I was like making notes and stuff. I saw the Billy Goat's curse, and it was the bit at the end really caught me where Colt goes for like the Superman pin, but he sort of ends up like with his arms outside the bottom rope,
It was obvious, wasn't it? It was an obvious.
Well, surely in that sort of situation, that the ref should have sort of stopped it because it was like not great. Well, evidently he wasn't going for leverage, but it was clear it was setting up for the spot. Like,
yeah, it was obvious, wasn't it? It was an obvious finish. It was obvious what was going to happen.
So, yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It was, yeah.
Served some.
It served its purpose.
So, penultimate interview segment from Dave Marquez with one of the referees for tonight's main event, Tim Storm. It's a lot like Nick Aldis in terms of very fan-pleasing babyface. In terms of just sort of like getting the crowd to invest in him by just sort of like praising them, like you're the reason the NWA exists, and I can't really do this promo that justice. It was pretty darn good, and exactly what Tim Storm is great at doing.
I'm going to say promos as a whole on NWA, not just on Power, but on the pay-per-views as well, are genuinely really well. I don't know if they're written. I'm not going to say they're written just in case they're just made up on. I don't think they are, but they are very, very good. They build the future matches up very well. They establish, except for Tasha Steelz, they establish good characters. They do the job as far as promos are there to do a job. That's either to make the character better, to get you to know and understand the character or a wrestler, or to hype up something. And they always seem to do a job in the NWA. They always seem to do that job, whether it's one or the other, depending on who it is that's doing it.
I have a feeling that they probably are scripted to an extent, but they aren't scripted heavily as they are in, say, WWE.
Yeah.
Where you're basically reading off a script, and because you're not a trained actor, that's why it comes across as being like monotone and most of the time absolutely nothing promos. Whereas I think with NWA in particular, there's sort of like a natural stance to it. Like a lot, like how promos used to be in WWE back in the day, because like WWE promos today are literally word for word scripts, whereas like you could say back in like Attitude Era, like 99 or 2000 Raw, there would literally just be sort of like a tiny little block to say like a Triple H or a Rock, and they'd just go out there and they'd have points, but they'd be able to have some creative freedom of how they get that point across. And I think that's probably similar to what they do in the NWA.
Yeah, and I think it comes across so well in terms of wrestlers like Eli Drake, for instance. He is better if you just go out there, do a promo. That's all you need to say to wrestlers like him. Go out there, do a promo. It's as simple as that. Do a promo hyping up this, or do a promo on that wrestler. That's how good that roster is, I believe. With Nick Aldis, I don't think he needs much instruction. Honestly, I don't. I generally just think, go out and do this segment. It's enough for him. He can hype up a crowd. He can hype up what he's done for the NWA in the last couple of years is nothing short of remarkable. Yeah. Nothing short of remarkable. It's that NWA title, as prestigious as it is, was on the verge of extinction. And here we are now talking as if it's the greatest prize in wrestling, which I believe it is. And that's all down to him and him alone. And I'm just going to take my cock out of Bunkle's mouth now.
Well, no, I think when it comes to sort of like
seriously though, yeah.
I think when it comes to Nick Aldis, and we've mentioned it like several times on when we did the Crockett Cup, is that he's probably the most naturally talented at cutting a promo in wrestling today. And as you say, Ant, like the NWA title and the NWA as a whole, like I'm pretty sure like it's like in the segment he cut like near the start of the show, it was literally just a case of saying like 2.5 years ago, the NWA was in the cusp of obscurity. Nobody was talking about the NWA. And he doesn't outright say he's the reason, but I think like most of the majority of the fan base can literally point to him and say he's the one that's restored prestige to the title. And that's why, like, if people were to ask me today what is the most prestigious title in wrestling, I'd say it's sort of like a joint top spot between the IWGP World Title and the NWA World Title.
Exactly.
And
exactly
I'd say the NWA is the most prestigious belt that you can win in the United States without going abroad. I genuinely think that.
It's not a belt. It's not a belt you can win just because you go to lots of interviews with Sky Sports or with God knows who else or ESPN. It's not a title you can win just because you suck up to the boss enough. This is a title that you win, especially the NWA and the IWGP. A title that you win because you simply are one of the best. No denying it. Because you are one of the best.
You're basically the complete package.
Exactly. It's sort of an acknowledgement, an acknowledgement from the people who are running the companies and the people booking you and the other wrestlers behind you. You are one of the best at the minute in time, especially the NWA and the IWGP. To hell with all the other titles. I think they are more corporate than anything else. They are just corporate titles. Corporate titles. Let's call them corporate titles. I've got to come up with a thing. Let's have a t-shirt. Fuck it. But the IWGP, NWA, if you've won that title, or even if you're in a match or a number one contender for that title, you are somewhat on the way to becoming, if not already, one of the best wrestlers on the planet. That is on the mic, in the ring, everything. End of.
Yeah, pretty much. Speaking of the NWA title, it's on the line in our final contest, the main event. A 2 out of 3 falls match for the NWA Heavyweight Championship. The champion, the national treasure, Nick Aldis, taking on the cowboy, James Storm. Now, the main gimmick for this match, with it being 2 out of 3 falls, there's also referee stipulations. So both men could handpick a referee of their choice. James Storm, with his conspiracy head on, just goes for the most competent, the best wrestler in the NWA at the moment, that being Brian Hebner. And Nick Aldis also makes mention in the promo that if Storm hadn't picked Brian Hebner, that would have been his pick, but he chooses Tim Storm. And I believe it's sort of like he explains his pick of just saying that Tim Storm solidifies the prestige and the honor that the NWA title has, and that was the main reason for sort of picking him. So Brian Hebner is the referee for the first fall. Tim Storm is the referee for the second fall. If a third fall is needed, there will be a coin toss between which of those two referees are to officiate the final fall. So fall number 1, it goes just over 2 minutes. Like literally, there's a lock up. There's like locks up. There's transitions of key locks and wrist locks and stuff like that. There's a clean break. And then Camille, who, despite the fact that Nick Aldis gave her the night off with pay, just appears at ringside. Aldis tells her to leave, and he turns right into a last call super kick, and James Storm picks up the first fall. Second fall, James Storm is, well, it's primarily just James Storm beating the holy fuck out of Nick Aldis. Primarily on the outside. They go up into the crowd as there's a quite a interesting fan interaction spot with sort of like someone who sat down, and James Storm's just sort of like, hey, dude, put your foot up. So he puts his foot up and just sort of like does the tag team thing of ramming Aldis into the guy's foot. James Storm with quite a nasty suplex on the floor. If you're a wrestler, I wouldn't recommend taking a bump on solid ground, which is teasing of a count out, which Aldis gets back in at 9. Crowd gets their wish as they're chanting for the wrestlers to use the tree. So they get the wish as Aldis reverses an Irish whip and Storm goes crashing through the Christmas tree. I was a little bit annoyed with James Storm because it's not 15-20 seconds later he's back on offense. So that was a tad bit annoying. There's a lovely overhead belly-to-belly suplex from Nick Aldis. Great show of strength from James Storm as he's able to pick up the near 250-pound Aldis for his like spinning powerbomb dealie, which calls the Eye of the Storm. He goes out, James Storm, I should say, goes out, gets a chair, looks as if he's going to use it, but then relinquishes it to ref Tim Storm. And then there's a Battle of Cradles, which Aldis wins, and wins the second fall, tying it up at 1-1. So straight after the second fall, both men are going fisticuffs, and they have to be separated by their own picked officials, which I thought was quite a nice touch. You know, the separated, Brian Hebner's holding Storm back, and Tim Storm is holding Nick Aldis back. The official at ringside properly botches his explanation of how the coin flip is going to work. Just fumbly bumblies over his lines, and very nearly drops the coin when doing the coin toss. But it's revealed that Brian Hebner will be the official for the third fall. And then we get into sort of like Big Move City. So literally, since the third fall starts, there's a Michinoku driver from Aldis for 2. Third attempt after a couple of missed spots for a backstabber, which James Storm eventually hits for another 2. There's a superplex from Aldis for another 2. There's another attempt. Storm reverses and nails top rope elbow. And then I haven't really got anything else before the finish. So did you guys have anything of note about the match itself?
To be fair, I really enjoyed it. Up until this point, I liked the way they made the falls feel different, even though they were all just standard wrestling matches. I think it was quite important to make them feel different and feel like they had a different conclusion, and like almost like you were watching a different match in a way. So yeah, I think they did a really good job. Again,
okay.
I'll touch on at the end of sort of like the story that the kind of story that I thought that they were telling.
Yeah.
With regards to the match, because it plays into the finish as well.
Yeah.
There was a lot of pins in this match. A lot.
Particularly the third fall.
Particularly the third fall. There was too much. It felt like 1, 2, okay, spot 1, 2, spot 1, 2, It felt like it went on a bit. Oh God, the oldest fan is bloody chiming up in here again.
I've not said a word.
Well,
you don't have to say anything. Your face tells me everything.
I can understand.
I love these two wrestlers. Do not get me wrong. These two are absolutely fantastic. That third fall went. I make my notes are very scarce on the iPad, but for a two, that's 9 in the third fall that I've made note of. God knows how many more there are. For a 2. For a third fall in a 2 out of 3 falls match, that's too much. It ruins that third fall because you're expecting it to be a 2, and then when it's not, it's like, oh, that's not a, oh, yay, great, fantastic. It kills the finish for me. Because we all expected Aldous to retain. Let's not sit here and pretend that James Storm was anywhere near becoming NWA champion. Let's be honest. Come on. No disrespect. However, I will go into this. James Storm.
Oh, here we go.
He's looking deep into the camera, ladies and gentlemen.
Continue. No, I'm joking. Who knows what I'm going to say next? I'm so unpredictable. No. I like the James Storm gimmick. I like what he does. Sorry about your damn luck and all that God-forsaken stuff. Is it good enough to beat Nick Aldis? Is he good enough to carry the NWA title? Absolutely not. Let's not sit here and pretend and talk to each other like James Storm had a fucking chance of taking this title away from Nick Aldis. Even at a 2 out of 3 fall man, even with Camille coming in and just distracting literally the whole NWA fan base. Because let's be honest, yeah, what was that? Camille's out. Oh, James Storm's what? Oh, right, okay, but Camille's out. Oh, she's gone. Oh, right, wrestling man. That's we're laughing because it's true. But that's there's no way on earth that James Storm, all due respect, can take this title of Nick Aldis. No way. No. So let's not pretend he was going to win for the slightest. Let's not.
No, I'll touch on the near fall aspect that you've brought up when I go through my final thoughts. So the finish, Brian Hebner gets taken out with an inadvertent clothesline from Nick Aldis, and fucking credit to him, he takes a massive fucking bump off it. Like, it's something his dad would never fucking take. So this means that Tim Storm, the second officiate, has to come in and take over. So there's a last call super kick from James Storm, which sends Aldis into the corner, and he's like grabbing the turnbuckle, and as Storm comes in, sort of like Oklahoma rolling, Aldis sort of like takes the turnbuckle pad with him, and like literally off the kick out, sends Storm into the exposed steel. There was a sort of like a dodgy little bit when sort of like Tim Storm just sort of like kicks the turnbuckle pad out of the ring. And then Aldis locks in his Kingsling Cloverleaf, and James Storm is knocked out. Tim Storm calls for the belt, and Nick Aldis retains in a match that overall went 21 minutes 51. In terms of the match itself, I thought it was decent. Nothing overly amazing, but I felt it was like the story that it sort of told was that James Storm was going all guns blazing, and it was up to Nick Aldis to try and survive. Because, like, particularly in the second fall, it was all James Storm, and it was literally only off of a flash pin from Aldis that he was able to tie it up. And then, just to reference what you said, Anthony, in terms of sort of like the near falls, it didn't take me out of it too much. Just because it wasn't a case of like it being like, you know, James Storm hits multiple last call super kicks, and, you know, Aldis continues to kick out, and, you know, Aldis might do sort of like multiple Michinoku drivers, or, you know, like choke slams or whatever his like non-submission finish will be, and the lead to kickouts, which is what WWE would do. It's just literally a case of you know, big moves, but not their finishing moves, which I feel is something that's lost quite a lot in modern day wrestling. So I didn't mind it too much. But I must say, the creativity on the finish and the fact that you could take it both ways of just sort of like, ooh, has Aldis done this on purpose? Has he, taken the little cheap ways of going to retain his title? Tim Storm, although he sort of like officiated down the middle, him kicking the turnbuckle pad out of the ring did look a little bit dodgy, but it might just all be a coincidence. I thought that was really well done. I thought so. I mean, I had in my notes that it was a decent main event, nothing blow away, but the finish was very creative, and it sort of sets up the storylines going forward for Power.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's exactly what I thought. Cheers, Ant. I'm gonna be honest. I thought this match was better on second viewing than it was the first time I saw it.
Right.
The first time I saw it, it was obviously early hours of the morning, a bit tired, and I remember coming out of it thinking, wait a minute, what was that? As in, because to go with like what is a screw job finish was a bit like, hang on a minute, for your first pay-per-view, that's where we're going. But then on the second viewing, like say, you pick up that, oh well, it's sowing the seeds of doubt for how we go forward with Power. Is Aldis a heel? Is he a face? It's blurring those lines. And like you said about the 2 counts, I completely agree. If this was WWE or some, that indie mud show that Anne likes, it would have been finisher, dive, pin, dive, and all that garbage. Yeah. So, and it makes sense to go for the pinfalls as well. Like, if you think about it, you're making that person kick out. Think about it this way. Every time that you're putting your weight on top of that person, you're wearing them out. You're forcing them to expend energy to kick out. Yeah? Mm-hmm. So it makes sense. And like you say, you don't make your finishers look like a bag of shite because you have to do them all the time or a million times to get a pinfall.
Mm. And it just devalues titles, devalues finishes when you're just doing like kickouts to them on numerous occasions.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say this: that Kingsland cloverleaf that he does, in the end, it does do a job for that move in itself with James Storm sort of just going like some sort of depressed seal and sort of giving up on everything and just kind of like flopping to death. I don't know what a depressed seal looks like, but it's the Stone Cold Steve Austin passing out in the sharpshooter moment. It's like that. I'm not possibly comparing the two, but it's the same story, isn't it? The same concept, yeah, exactly. It elevates the move, and I think that's what that was meant to do in the end. However, the crowd did start chanting "Merry Christmas" at one point.
Yeah, it was after James Storm got after Storm wiped out the Christmas tree.
The Mongrovian pine, as Mr. Bennett does point out. Obviously, a lovely tree in the state of Monrovia or the country of Monrovia. If you ever go there, do get one. They're very cheap. Don't shred at all, and your dog will love them. I do feel back to the fucking wrestling. That last fall, there was too many 2 counts. I love these 2 wrestlers. I think if they had a straight up match, it would be fantastic. I just think this 2 out of 3 falls nonsense. I'm saying nonsense, but
it's classic NWA. That's where that comes from.
But did we just have a 2 out of 3 falls match because we had Tim Storm in there as well, and we could further this storyline on? Is that the only reason we did it? Really? Fucking look at yourself, Billy Corgan. Have a look at yourself, pal, and just ask yourself: is this the only reason we did it? I mean, at the end of the day, if you say all NWA World Championship matches are 2 out of 3 falls, I wouldn't have a gripe. But the fact that this has got it in, it tries to elevate Aldis's King's Lynn Cloverleaf, but at the same time, it sort of devalues it with Tim Storm calling it early and God knows what else. It feels like a shitty turn. It feels like a screw job. It feels like a screw job, which I don't think they needed or should want, really. You shouldn't want a screw job with all this. You shouldn't need a screw job with all this. Let's be honest. He doesn't need the screw job. He doesn't do it. But this has made it feel like it. It felt like a screw job to me.
If it was sort of like I realise I'm wrestling like a show that I've never actually seen before. But if you were sort of like saying like Starrcade '99, Bret Hart Goldberg in the main event, and Roddy Piper comes out with referee shirt on, Bret Hart immediately puts Goldberg in the sharpshooter, and then like Roddy Piper immediately calls for the belt because we love nothing more than sort of like referencing Montreal as the atypical screw job. But this was done in a way.
Isn't that the problem?
No, because like there is a way of sort of like you could pass it off as like being screwy, but it's also sort of like done in a way that you could pass it off as just being oh, Nick Aldis, you pulled the turnbuckle off. It's like, well, that's just it's just a coincidence. I was hanging on because I was freaking sapped of energy, and then I'm pulled away, and the turnbuckle comes loose, and
sounds like my wedding night.
no, but you know what I mean. There's sort of like there's
the obvious screw job, and then there's something like this where
it's done in such a way that you could say it's a screw job later on down the line, but at the same time you could just sort of like pass it off as being one of those things in wrestling that just happens. You know?
I think NWA get away with it because
it's not.
I think Nick Aldis is so good he does get away with it. I think if WWE pulled that shit, they wouldn't get away with it.
It's not a case of getting away with it. It's just sort of like if like Aldis had locked in the cloverleaf and Tim Storm immediately called for the bell, then you'd probably have sort of like more of a case. But the fact of like Aldis locks in the cloverleaf, you could tell James Storm is out, but Tim Storm is there just going like, James, talk to me. James, come on. If you don't answer me, I'm going to stop this match. So he still presents himself as a competent official. So I mean, you could pass it off as just being. I just look at it as coincidentally, Aldis is able to have the crafty championship experience and is able to just sort of like eke one out. I wouldn't call it a fully fledged screw job.
Yeah, I think it's quite smart booking. When if you look at it, you gotta look at it from the NWA's point of view. Though we know James Storm isn't on the same level as Nick Aldis, James Storm is one of the biggest stars they have. Yeah, we've got to admit that. So why would you have this way? Aldis doesn't beat him clean, but he does. So you can this can be a main event again down the line, and there are now
James Storm has an out.
Yeah, James Storm has an out.
Sort of like a case of if I don't go headfirst into that turnbuckle, I could arguably say that I would have won.
Yeah. It's booking for the future. It's booking for, it's making you question whether Aldis has come across as a face this whole time, and it's making you question, wait, is he?
Yeah,
and you want to believe that it was an accident. You want Aldis to be that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing is, sort of like, particularly with the build-up, is like Aldis for the most part has been playing it as sort of like, babyface champion, but then there will be sort of like moments here or there, like he on the episode of Power Way faces Trevor Murdoch, he's doing an interview with Dave Marquez, and he literally just goes like a case of, I am willing to give Trevor Murdoch an opportunity, but it will be a non-title match because I don't particularly think that he's worthy enough to challenge for the £10 of gold. So there's like little bits and pieces there, sort of potentially teasing a heel turn, but it's nothing significant that would make him a heel, like a fully fledged heel. It's just sort of like it's teasing on sort of like the edge a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I think is like a quite unique way of booking a champion. Like it's kind of sort of similar to what they're doing with. I mean, I don't watch AEW, but it's sort of similar to what they're doing with Cody in AEW. By just basically, he's the American Nightmare, the champ, the guy that like lots of fans probably love, but then he will sort of like throw in a couple of like ribs at like other people, other babyfaces in the company.
It's that quote unquote tweener gimmick that so many people are trying to do at the minute. I think I'm going to put Alison Kay under that bracket of tweener because, let's be honest, she acts like a heel, but she's popular with the fans, so she's a tweener. What point do we stop the heel and face shit? I'm being very honest with you. What point do we? Obviously, you've got wrestlers like, because I watch AEW because I know wrestling.
You're progressive.
In body and in mind. I watch MJF. He's the best fucking heel in wrestling today. End of. Screw you if you disagree with me. I won't have any of it. He's the best heel. So, we want these wrestlers who we think are good wrestlers. We want to cheer for them. We want them to do better. But how do we get them to do better if we're just booing them constantly? Because as we have found out over the years, wrestling promoters have a big difficulty in knowing what is heel heat, as they say, and heat because you're shit. Let's take a perfect example. Melina, you get heat because you're shit. MJF, you get heat because you're good. How on earth is a wrestling promoter going to decide that without consulting, saying, me?
Because to be a good heel, you have to have some level of talent, which, is few and far between.
And just like that, we have another shot of Melina. Go fuck yourself, love.
It's not a shot if you're telling the truth. Anyway, Coxie, you've not talked for quite a while, and I do apologise for that, but your thoughts on the main event?
No, it's fine. I pretty much agree with everything everyone said anyway. Like, you got what? The first fall was at about 2 minutes 20?
That's something along the lines, yeah.
Second fall came around 11 minutes. And, of course, like Anthony said here, I've got in my notes, it's like a bit of a brawl. Michinoku gets 2. Cut off by Storm, backstabber, gets a 2. Enziguri by Storm, heads up top, crotches him, suplex, 2. And so on and so on. But it's also that thing for me, like, you knew going into it, like you said already, like, Storm wasn't. Storm was. I mean, it's like even with them trying to throw in Tim Storm in there as like the could he screw over Aldis sort of thing, like it wasn't going to happen. So, but yeah, it was a decent match. I enjoyed it, and yeah, decent little show.
Can I just check the times on the falls? Because obviously the first one was relatively short. I don't know if we have them specifically. But how quick was the first, second, and the third fall?
The first fall was 2 minutes 19. The second fall was... Just trying to do maths in my head.
About 11 minutes, roughly.
Quick maths!
I clocked it in at 9... 13... It's 9:26 for the second fall.
Mm.
And then the third fall was... about 9 minutes 33. So I mean like the overall match itself clocked in at just under 22 minutes. It was 21:51. So
that's what it felt like.
Those are just sort of like rough guesstimates that I've made of the times.
That's what it did feel like that. I mean, the first fall was quick, obviously to further the tension between Nick Aldis and Camille and all that. The third fall is the issue here. In terms of, oh God, I saw the look on Bunkle's face there when I said that. He doesn't like it when I criticise him, does it?
No, it's not that. It's not that at all. It's not that at all. I think I've said my bit on the third fall. I feel like I've said my bit, and each to their own. Everybody likes different things. You like guys with hands in their pockets. I don't. Stuff like that.
You have different wrestling tastes.
It's on there. No, my argument is I don't think it needed so many 2 counts. I think if they have a good wrestling match, as these two could have or should have, they're both good wrestlers in their own right, and you could have the same finish. Without the so many 2 counts, the same finish, and I think it would have worked just as good. So have the turnbuckle slamming into James Storm's face. I hit myself on the head there. That fucking hell. Fucking hell. And then have Nick Aldis locking in the Kingsland Cloverleaf, and have that still works. It's just there's so many 2 counts. It just took away the magic and it took away the build-up. It took away the build-up of that finish, I feel.
I mean, if you didn't like the third fall here, I'd shudder to think what you would have thought of when Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano had their 2 out of 3 falls match.
Can I say, Adam Cole, people often say I'm not very tall.
Why are we talking about Adam Cole as an NWA podcast?
Adam Cole is billed at 6 foot. I've had a picture taken with him, and I'm the same height, so I'm technically 6 foot, so fuck you, people.
The last thing I'll say about this pay-per-view, because there is an additional bit after the main event. Nick Aldis just basically cuts a promo, just basically saying, I don't think there's a man on this earth that can take the NWA title for me. There's a particular person that comes out, goes face to face with Aldis, and yeah, that's the indicator. But I don't want to really give too much airtime to him because of certain allegations. So I would just cut off the pay-per-view here. Overall thoughts on the show. This was, for me, a much easier watch than the Crockett Cup. I mean, it helped with the fact that it was an hour shorter. I clocked it as being a 2 hours 28, which is perfect time for a pay-per-view, really. There were some decent matches. Some overall not very good matches, but it was an easy show to watch. And as I say, I think it definitely helped with watching the episodes of Power to sort of keep up with the storylines. And when we do eventually get to the next pay-per-view, which is Hard Times, the January show, I look forward to sort of like watching the episodes of Power and then the pay-per-view, much like I have done for this show.
Yeah, again, I can't really disagree. Easy watch. You know, I love the fact that pay-per-views don't have to be 4 hours or 7 hours long, as they are in some cases, which I can't stand. You know, the show did everything that I expected of it. I think the main event again was great, just like it was at the Crockett Cup. And you know, the rest of the matches did what I think that they were there to do. But yeah, can't complain.
I love watching NWA weekly on YouTube and these shows on Fight TV, or goodness knows where else you get them. They fly by, and that's good that they fly by. They are entertaining. I'm going to say there's not a gloriously bad thing. Obviously, I'm going to go in depth on there's too many pinfalls and God knows what else. But on the whole, this is such a good show. This is such a good promotion. Just go and watch. It's free on YouTube weekly. Why pay such stupid amounts of money to watch unpredictable shite that you know what's coming? Watch this. Get this on your eyes. Get this in your ears. Just get it on your face, people. Get it on your face. I could honestly sit in the fact that I struggle sometimes to watch WrestleManias. I struggle sometimes to watch WWE pay-per-views. I struggled. I have never, ever, ever had an issue with watching NWA. Never, ever. I can sit there silently. Oh, me being silent, funny. I can sit there, being not Daz, being me, for a good however long this fucking shit goes on for, and enjoy it. It is an absolute riot. And not Ruby Riot, who's never on TV anymore. It's an absolute riot in a good sense. It's fantastic to. If you're a wrestling fan, watch it. Get it watched. For God's sake, get it on your eyes. Get it in your ears. Surely FM, for fuck's sake. Come in your ears. I'm plugging your podcast now, so fucking help me out. Help me out.
I can literally just I got a message from Bunkle the other day whose idea was it to watch this again? And he's like, whoever it was, I just wanted to say thank you. And I was like, you probably best direct that to Lewis. And he's like, well, whoever it was. And I could just envision him watching NWA, watching Into the Fire, doing the whole Ric Flair promo, to his wife, with a tear in my eye.
This is the greatest I've ever watched.
And then he just finishes it with a woo and just walks out of the room, and she's like, the fuck are you even on about?
But on a serious note, I've never seen a bad show.
No.
Never ever seen a bad show from NWA.
To be fair, I was going to say, I think if you hadn't watched Power going into it, you probably would have struggled through it a bit, because you wouldn't have really known, of course, storylines and stuff. So,
in a way, yeah. I think I made mention, in the fourth match, I think it was halfway through the show, Joe Galley, the play-by-play commentator, does do a good job of sort of explaining the storyline that's been played out on Power that builds up to the matches. Does do a good job there. It's one thing explaining it, but for the full effect, you are better sort of watching the weekly show.
Mm.
So watch it, guys. Seriously, watch it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Is there anything else, Coxie, or was that all you had to say about it?
That was it, really. I think it's just one of them. I think if you just stuck on Into the Fire, you probably wouldn't enjoy it as much. But if you watch you watch Power beforehand, and you sort of understand where Into the Fire comes from. And of course, your quota loves that song, and then season 2 comes along and just shits all over it. We're not using that anymore.
Well, I will say the debut is, I think, like halfway through season 2. I think it's like episode 16 that it kicks in.
Yeah,
so
something like that,
there is like a sort of like I think like the first third of season 2 still has the Into the Fire theme. So I'll enjoy it while it lasts, as will we all. So that brings us to a close on our Into the Fire pay-per-view review. And next up on the Lost Art of WrestleBox, we will be turning back to the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. We'll be having a look at both nights, but we'll be looking at night 1 specifically next time of Wrestle Kingdom 14, which is the first half of the double champion event, to decide who, by the end of Wrestle Kingdom, who will be I believe the first ever IWGP World Heavyweight and Intercontinental title holders. But yeah, that'll be next time on Lost Art of WrestleBox. So guys, if you've got anything to plug away now.
As usual, if you've enjoyed hearing my voice as much as I enjoy hearing my own voice, you can find me on the Gunpowder Treason No Plot podcast. They're available on all good podcast providers, and you can follow them on Twitter @TreasonNo.
And I've been the real Not Daz Anthony Dart, and you can follow my boys at twin_thing_1 and twin_thing_2. You're welcome, the Tate brothers. Also, at the start of this podcast, we mentioned something very, very special, especially to my heart. Also, if you are struggling with anything in particular and need to speak to someone, I cannot, especially in the Blackpool area and the Northwest or anywhere around the UK, please speak to Supporting Minds. They are fantastic. They work with the NHS. So call them on 01253 955 700. Give them a ring. They are fantastic, fantastic people. They've helped me out a lot without going into great detail. I'm out of character at the minute. I'm speaking to you as Anthony Dart. Go and speak to me with anything at all. You don't need a referral from your GP or your doctor or anything like that. Just go and speak to them. They will help you out the best they can. They are fantastic people. Please do that.
I'll put the info in the description.
Thank you very much.
And of course, if you enjoyed hearing my voice, as much as I enjoy hearing my own voice, because I'm like Bunker with delivery man, delivering audio gold, please sign here. In fact, no, I've got a sign for it myself because of COVID-19. Living the gimmick. No, of course, I don't self-flate high five like Bunkle does. Of course, you can find the Lost Art of Podcasting on Facebook. We're on Twitter at Lost Art Podcast. You can find us on Instagram at Lost Art Podcasting, where I do post some wrestling stuff sometimes. You can find the Lost Art of Podcasting on Twitter at LAOW Podcast and on Facebook at Lost Art of Wrestling. And of course, you can find Not Dad is having a random dance. Someone bring him a boy, not literally.
Please, for the love of fucking God, stop saying that. Oh, please do, for the sake of my employment. Please stop saying that. Follow me, the real Not Dad.
And of course, you can follow our sister pod, the Phoenix Pod, and they're on like this pod. They're on all good podcast providers, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, and Stitcher, and other places.
And the one little plug I'll give is primarily for our good buddy Stupid Sexy Flinders and his podcast RAD Live, which I tend to feature on sometimes. So be sure to go and search for it on Facebook, RAD Live. Also search for it on Twitter, and they're available on all good podcasting sites: Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, Apple Music. If you've got an Android phone and you use the Castbox app, we're on there as well. And other good podcasting sites. Lads, thank you very much for coming on again, and we'll probably see most of you next time for when we do NWA Hard Times. But until next time, on the Lost Art of WrestleBox, I've been the Stowaway, Lewis Ogden.
I've been the delivery man, Billy the Boy Bunkle.
I've been the real Knockdowns, Anthony Dark.
And I've been AXC.
And we will see you next time for Night 1 of Wrestle Kingdom 14.